Driving it home with Patti Vasquez, Patti Vasquez.
From global conflicts to greenhouse gases, the folks refusing to wear masks says, and politicians getting caught grabbing ass says, she's driving it home with Patti Vasquez.
Hey, everybody. Are you hydrating? Are you hydrating? That's what I need to do first to get a sponsor is find like one of those electrolyte companies. Tim Hogan joins me in studio. He is the executive director of the Heartland Signal Newsroom. First, I want to thank our sponsor, Source Solar. Go to source.solar to find out about their solar equipment and whether or not, well, schedule an appointment and find out if it's a right fit for your house. Go to source.solar. Tim Hogan, I don't ask people how they are anymore, so I'm going to ask you, are you hydrating, my friend?
I should come to the microphone.
That's all right. That's
far
okay.
away.
I can move that screen closer to you.
It's all good.
Okay. Are you hydrating?
I'm hydrated.
Yeah. Do you ask people how they are?
I think drinking water is the only thing I'm doing correctly right now.
Staying hydrated.
Yeah.
Get some of those electrolyte packs. There's ones that are like salty and it makes me feel like I'm having a margarita.
Ooh.
A little lemon lime.
That's fun.
I like that. Yeah, I can't ask people how they are anymore.
It's high. It's like it's very almost performative at this point.
It is.
No, not performative, but you know what I mean? The answer is performative. You're like,
I don't trust people who say they're great. I love you.
Great
and
is
I have
too much.
Right? A lot of my friends.
Unless they're coming back from vacation.
Even
or
then.
they're not. Yeah,
they're on their way to vacation.
They're on their way to vacation.
Yeah,
yes.
maybe. Yeah.
Exactly.
I just don't even. I've asked everybody to just not react to every single thing. Have you gotten there? Are you able to not react to every single thing?
Yeah, I mean, when he tweeted about getting rid of the penny, I was like, you know what? I'm going to let it pass. That to me was actually the test for us as liberals. Is like he did something and I was like, we need the penny. It's not a big deal. I mean, like, look, I think there's so much like old is new in this moment, and you want to have some shiny, brilliant tactic in front of you that it's been 10 years of this garbage. So like, surely we must have like innovated some new strategy here. And like, I think people are kind of realizing it is the same old, like be active, go to town halls, go to events, make phone calls to members of Congress, make sure that there's pressure. I mean, you know, and some of them do feel it. Like Lisa Murkowski tweeted, this was a while ago, but when DOJ started their cuts, that it was a day that they had received the most phone calls to their office ever. So, you know, it's hard. It's like still very, very hard because you have to pick yourself up. Still, I think people are doing that after a terrible loss and realizing we have 4 years of this and figure out how to fight back. But the one thing that we know is not the answer is capitulation or bending the knee or feeling like we can be steamrolled. And I think if there's some energy out there that we're starting to see at these town hall meetings, that's good. And these are in like Georgia, Oregon, Missouri, deep red R+30 districts. People are showing up and it's their constituents. And we're hearing these Republicans not being able to answer the question. Scott Fitzgerald, who's a Republican congressman out of Wisconsin, saying, I haven't really been briefed by DOJ. So like, I guess all the people who are losing their jobs in his district as a result of federal cuts, he can't help them. There was another, Mark Alford, in Missouri, who said, God has a plan. For you, if you've been
you ain't in it
as a federal worker, and also said, you know, my wife was just fired from the Federal Reserve, which I don't know if that's part of a DOJ cut or she just was laid off or what is going on, but like as if that is supposed to be okay or calming or anything. But yeah, sorry, your question was, am I swinging at every pitch now? And I think the answer is no, because you just don't have the energy to do it.
Right.
And it's a bit of like divide and conquer and push back where you can. And, you know, the attorney generals or attorneys general, what's the plural?
It is attorneys general.
Attorneys general.
Yeah, it's like sisters-in-law. That's okay.
We're going off the air. We're relaunching. They screwed that up.
Fix it in post.
Yeah, fix it in post. But no, there's, you know, the AGs are fighting back. People are fighting back at town halls, and it's just finding and picking your spot and doing what you can.
Well, I didn't realize the language a few weeks ago when he said when you're saving the country, the law doesn't apply to you kind of a thing. Well, apparently that was also something said during a terrorist attack in another part of the world and it's not necessarily maybe applying to him, but to, like a signal to others, which I thought was terrible. Like things like that catch me off guard. I remembered when he won the first time that I had this sort of feeling like maybe this, not that it wasn't real, like we accepted it, but we're like, something's got to happen where this doesn't continue. And now we just know this is how it is. And to your point about the town hall meetings, you saw the woman in Idaho who was protesting Roe v. Wade, and he started calling her names, telling her she was hysterical and crazy, and got the room to turn on her. And then apparently one person in law enforcement, but then two guys who were just like
unclear, right?
Security or something, putting her in the zip ties, and carrying her like she's out of her. Like she was screaming. Yeah. I mean, that's the kind of thing that we've been afraid of. And I don't know if it didn't move those people in that room to go, this is one of our neighbors who, she's being disruptive, but I guess if it was something that was pertinent to them, if it wasn't abortion, right? I don't know.
I mean, one of the least satisfying things about this, I think, there's nothing satisfying about any of this, but is that we are in a period right now, still in his first 100 days, traditionally when these newly elected presidents have their honeymoons, even though we're in an odd situation with him where he's, reelected after a gap of 4 years. It's really problematic because I actually think he had he had time to put together a team during that period and plan what the retake over would look like here. But I think we're starting to see a little bit of the laws of political gravity starting to apply, and his approval numbers are coming down, and his approval in particular on the economy is underwater by 12 points. Or, something along those lines, depending on the polling that you're looking at. And, the only person that he's more popular than in this period right now was him in 2016 when his approval rating was even lower. So, I say it's not satisfying because there's a little bit to that is like, wait and see, time. People are going to get sick of this very quickly. People are already getting really sick of this. Yeah. And I think nobody who voted for him thought maybe they were going to cut government waste, and that was part of it. But now he's going to go explode the deficit with $4.6 trillion worth of tax cuts. A bunch of that is going to go to really wealthy people who don't need it. People are losing their jobs, and these federal workers, people don't realize 80% of those federal workers live outside of D.C. They live in communities where often the government is a key employer for people who are firefighters or people who work at the VA. 30% of people who are federal workers, 30% are veterans. And we've seen disabled veterans being fired. And what are those people working on? Well, they're working on lowering administrative burdens on doctors, so those doctors at the VA can actually see their patients and lower wait times and make sure people get the care they need. So you can, and the cutting that they're doing is not smart. It's just, it's the chainsaw, right? Right. The Clinton, when he was elected, tried to cut some federal bureaucracy and ended up saving taxpayers like $100 billion around that point in time in his administration. But they did it through a long process, 6 months or so, of figuring out where they could reasonably make cuts. That's not what's happening right now. It's Elon Musk sending you an email saying, tell me 5 things you did this week.
God.
And then saying you're fired if you don't reply. And then that wasn't even in the email. He tweeted that you'd be fired. So are federal workers supposed to be reading his tweets? It's chaos. And we're seeing today, finally, the Trump administration is you don't have to do that. But what a mess. What a mess.
It is a mess. And my mom was a computer programmer for the federal government, which cracked me up last week when we saw all these people, including on my Facebook page, just cheering that they're finding fraud. Look, there's tens of millions of people on Social Security who are between the ages of 100 and 150. And it turns out it's because it was all on COBOL programming, which is not something these kids know how to read. And guess who was a programmer? My mom
that's
was a
very
COBOL
funny.
Programmer.
We should have your mom do a fact check piece. Because I've seen that. I have seen people say that, that spreadsheet that was going around, that little cells that Musk was amplifying that were look, there's 10,000 people here and 100,000 people there. And it's no, those aren't where the checks are going. Right. The checks aren't going to those numbers, right? Those are just people who are marked a certain way in the database. They can't read COBOL.
Well, because the data reference goes all the way back to 1875, which I have to imagine is because when Social Security was initially unpacked, it was during Roosevelt's administration. So they had to find
our caller, Roosevelt, our listener, listener.
FDR, yes. So, I mean, that was the whole, she worked on Y2K because they had never gotten to the data reference of the year starting with a number 2 instead of a number 1. So at any rate, the other thing is, what are your how likely, or what do you think, with the amount of wind at their backs, I guess, notwithstanding all the town hall meetings, with the cuts that they are proposing to things like Medicaid? Because I've gone over the numbers, what it means for the state of Illinois, and it is catastrophic.
Yeah, no, it's terrible. I mean, it's terrible. Like if they push through the budget that they are currently trying to push through, it's going to be catastrophic for services. And it's so bad. It's so bad that even some Republicans are like, hey, this is going to hit really hard, you know? And like, that says something. That says something when someone like a Josh Hawley is worried
about Missouri,
about a budget that's going through that slashes Medicaid. And, you know, it just, that's this whole exercise that we're going through right now with quote unquote Doge is they're trying to get people ginned up on the fact that, oh, look, there's a contract you don't like in USAID that went to Colombia for $45,000. And we say all these numbers, by the way, are like incredibly wrong.
Yes.
Like they claimed, and I was reading this in the New York Times over the weekend, that they saved $1.9 billion for canceling a contract to a company in Northern Virginia. That contract was canceled during the Biden administration. That money was saved during the Biden administration. The Intercept has reported on how Doge is saying they're saving like $230 million on some Social Security IT services. What they will actually save is about $500,000. So we're not talking like, I'm sure you also saw the like accounting for an ICE contract that was marked as $8 billion in savings. It was $8 million. It was $8 million. And there may be some like issue that like the Doge guys did not get the number wrong, but it was wrong in the system to begin. But that's not the savings then.
Right.
It's not $8 billion in savings. And they're saying their top line savings right now, last I saw, was like $55 billion. But my point is, the reason that they are doing all of this is to make you feel like, oh my God, the government, it's so bloated. It's so bloated and terrible. So we're just going to cut. And you know what? We can afford to do this tax cut. It's fine. We're sending money back to people. But the reality is a huge percentage of that tax cut goes to the top 1%. To the top 1%, to the top 5%. And it's going to blow a huge hole in the deficit. But if you get people thinking that there's like enough fat to be cut, then whatever. But point being, like, this doesn't work out this way, right? Even I'm not defending every line item in the federal budget. Democrats should not defend every line item in the federal budget. We should definitely go on like searching for efficiency. There is a argument to be made that like the interest on the debt way too high as a payment of, you know, what comes in and what goes out. The debt overall way too high. But like, this is not an answer.
No.
It's not an answer in any way. It's just causing unnecessary pain.
And if there was fraud, by the way, because that's another thing that they're screaming, and again, folks are, this is, you know, I voted for this. They're doing exactly what I wanted. If there was fraud, where are the charging documents?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. Exactly. Is it fraud, or is it something you disagree with?
Right.
You know, like people keep going to like USA Spending and being like, oh, I found this thing, I found that thing. Like this transparency has existed for a very long time. Like you can go search and see where the spending is. And like, yes, you don't like, you know, X number of dollars going wherever. Okay, but that's not fraud.
No.
You just don't like the way it's structured. And that's a conversation too. Maybe we should change it. Maybe there should be greater transparency. But like, the point is, this is all just reckless. It's all reckless. And taking a chainsaw to the federal government is not the right answer, because you're hurting people.
What are you guys working on next to the Heartland Signal newsroom?
We're working on a lot of things. We are tracking really closely these town halls that are happening, in particular in the Heartland. The Mark Alford one that I mentioned, I think he's from Kansas, not Missouri. We have a clip of that of him saying, you know, God has a plan for you if you've lost your job as a federal worker. Also working on some interesting policies that like Democrats are proposing, because I think there's a big part of this that is not just, you know, what are Republicans doing? This is, you know, terrible, but like what do the Democrats stand for right now? There's an interesting policy that Tony Evers has talked about that we're looking at in Wisconsin that would allow the state to audit health insurance companies based on their denial of claims, which I think sounds like good policy.
I like that. Someone just asked me if there's a certain word I can say on the air. I don't know. You know, like the sort of the sound of Doge, but with a women's hygiene. Women's hygiene. I feel like I've heard it, but I call them Doge bags. So I've
seen the Doge bags. Yeah, I've seen that thrown around.
Yes, I'm trying to decide. I'll have someone weigh in on that.
Yeah, we'll check with standards and compliance.
Exactly. This is crazy. Well, I want to thank you so much. I know that you are crazy busy. I mean, I've never been so busy in my entire life.
Right. Just trying to keep your head above water.
Really, because during the day, as I mentioned, the reason I have a handle on the numbers at the state level. I mean, I could tell you how bad it is. I'll tell the audience. But here's what would you say to folks, because it is important to know, but not let it drive you down. Like, you can't be in panic mode. That's why I ask for people to just not react to every single thing. Do you have any suggestions, any words of hope and inspiration, folks?
I mean, I really do think for all of the insanity that is happening, I think it is worth anchoring yourself with, we will get through this.
Yes.
We'll get through this.
All right. We will get through this. That's not enough, but I'll take it. I'm just kidding. I just got one text. Also, cutting necessary spending doesn't save money necessarily. Example, not getting an oil change only saves money until your engine gives out.
Right. If you're cutting parts of the government that make the whole machine not work and are bad for people.
Yeah.
Not smart.
Well, that's one of the things that I tell folks, and I'll talk about Medicaid when I come back, but and Medicare for the state of Illinois, is when you invest in people, while you save lives, you also are making an investment and not having to spend more money later. Right. That's the same idea. So thank you so much. That's Tim Hogan. Where do you want folks to follow you in addition to Heartland Signal?
You know, I'm Tim J. Hogan.
On Twitter?
On Twitter. And Instagram.
Oh, there you go.
I post pictures of my dog there.
Aw.
Yeah.
I have to go see your dog. All right. Well, have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you for dropping in. And, folks, the phone lines are going to be open when we come back, 773-763-9278, because I am taking over the last hour of Joan's show, as she had her wonderful remote that was taped earlier, broadcast just a little while ago. It was a great union conversation. Terrifying, also terrifying. Mm-hmm. When these guys are shook, it makes me shook, is all I'm saying. At any rate, phone lines are going to be opened up, 773-763-9278. You can call or text. I'll be right back after this on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal. We're driving it home now till 7. I got 3 hours. I don't know, Tim, if that was a good idea. I'm just saying.
Patti Vasquez is taking your calls now at 773-763-9278. Driving it home with Patti Vasquez now on WCPT 820.
Thank you so much for joining us as we drive it home. I want to encourage you, if you have some thoughts that you want to share with us, now's the time to call, because I have a lot of guests coming up later on my part of the show from 5 to 7. We're going to talk to an alderwoman who reached out to me from Sterling, Illinois. There's going to be protests in her neck of the woods. I know folks have been messaging me asking that we make sure that people are aware of any events that are going on in the area. So that alderwoman will be joining us at 5:45. That's Aida Baker from Sterling, Illinois. And we also are going to have Patrick Cortese, who is the chair of the Democratic Party of McLean County, so we can find out what's going on in his neck of the woods. Jen Zanotti is going to join us for Motivational Monday, because as I mentioned, we all need to be grounded and keyed in, being aware of your body, being aware of your emotions, not react to everything. And so Jen's going to check in with us at 5:15. And then at 6 o'clock, we're going to change gears, because there's a film called Single Car Crashes that I want you to know about. It's by some local filmmakers, starring local actors, local crew, the whole thing. And we're going to talk to the director, some of the actors, and I believe Brittany is going to be joining us. A filmmaker, Brittany, is going to join us and talk about that. So I have to say, what was this? God's plan for most people is cremation. We were talking about the legislator from Kansas who said to fired federal employees that God's got a plan. God's got a plan for you. So I do want to talk a little bit about what it would mean for the state of Illinois if we experience the kinds of cuts that are being proposed by Republicans, because I know these are scary numbers and it's terrifying, but Crane's business today, Crane's Chicago business, really had multiple pieces, including the top-down sort of overview of what happens in Illinois if these cuts are enacted. So there are 12 states. We are actually kind kind of in this with we are definitely in this with red states because red states rely more on federal funding. We pay for more of their support services for their disaster support with FEMA. We put in more than we get back out of our federal tax dollars. So we are among 12 states that have a trigger law, which would so I want folks to be aware of this because this affects everybody. All of the people who voted for Trump and, again, thought it was just bad things were just going to happen to the people you didn't like, that you just wanted to own the libs. And as long as somebody else wasn't getting something you don't have, well, guess what? It's going to be across the board. There will be almost over 850,000 people will be dropped from Medicaid because of the ACA Medicaid expansion. If we have funding that drops below 90%, those individuals that are specifically covered under the ACA. Now, this is from Cranes. ACA Medicaid expansion. This will be primarily single adults that don't have children who previously had no option to enroll in Medicaid. So the trigger law was adopted in 2013 when Illinois opted into the ACA Medicaid expansion. So if they don't get enough funding to make sure that those folks have access to ACA, they will be dropped as soon as we drop below a certain amount of funding. The House Republicans have proposed replacing the current percentage-based funding with fixed allocation caps, so that they say that this is going to reduce because they want to reduce funding over time. So this would be it's going to be bad in year one, and then it gets progressively worse year after year. It's going to be catastrophic. They'll also reduce the federal match for Medicaid expansion from 90% to 50%, which would cost Illinois an estimated $3 billion, just to give you an idea of what would happen if the proposed Medicaid cuts go through in D.C. And so there are a lot of experts who weighed in. So, again, there's a lot of opinion pieces. If you have access to Crane's business, and I'm sure that this is also making the rounds on other platforms, but this would lead to hospital closures. This would lead to a lot of people who don't have access to health care then putting off getting any sort of treatment. They would, just say, well, I can't afford it. And now we are paying for emergency care for folks who have to seek immediate care. So it would accelerate and we already have some areas in Illinois that are hospital deserts, in particular, of course, in rural areas. We would also have it's just like a lot of this is just terrifying because we would be forced to cut dental, vision, hearing benefits as eligibility. We would also need to cut this is so hard. 50% of all children rely on Medicaid, just so you know. So the cuts would jeopardize preventative care. So that would, as I mentioned before, would reduce long-term health care costs. And I know that this is terrifying for a lot of folks who rely on it. And I know that you were already scared. I don't think that folks who receive these services, whether it's for themselves or others who voted for this, I just don't. And it's not just that those folks no longer have access to health care, to support services. That then becomes a huge liability for the entire economy of Illinois, for the entire economy of the country. There would be all kinds of bankruptcies. It's a lot, folks. 773-763-9278 if you want to give me a call. And I know that a lot of folks rely on these services, as Tim was saying, that there have been massive cuts in the VA. I don't get what the owning the libs is getting for these folks. And then this brinkmanship with Europe and having these conversations. Thank God, by the way, that essentially the Nazi Party of Germany, that J.D. Vance and Elon Musk were over there trying to, mush things up and try to elevate them and tell them that, like, you got to let the ultra extreme right also have a voice. Fortunately, they were not successful in their elections over the weekend in Germany, but they did come in second. They got the biggest votes, I believe, that they have ever as that faction of Germany's politics. So it's very terrifying. All right, let's take a break here. I am Patti Vasquez. We are driving it home an hour early. Joan did an extraordinary show with our union brothers and sisters. Excellent conversations in another area where, if you were listening, they were talking about basically making this entire country a right-to-work country, which would be again, a fatal blow to working families. Let's take a break. You know what's funny? A lot of people are like, go back to being funny. This isn't I'm a stand-up comic. That doesn't mean that I don't have one skin in this game. I operate from passion, from empathy, and a whole bunch of rage. Let's take a break here. We'll be right back after this on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal.
Listening to this station right now, you've definitely heard my voice before. Hi, I'm Hawk.
And I'm Pete. And we're with Source Solar, your local source for solar. Source Solar is Chicagoland's premier solar installer, providing solutions for over 1,000 homeowners and business owners across Illinois and Iowa.
With over a decade of industry experience and deep roots here in Chicago, we have the expertise to help your transition to clean, renewable, resilient energy.
We can guarantee that we save you money day one without any out-of-pocket cost to you. This means you have an instant ROI, instant payback, and can save money to add to your bottom line day one.
At Source Solar, we source everything as local as possible, meaning we always carry the Made in USA sticker.
Find us online at www.source.solar. Stop in our office at 5710 North Northwest Highway or give us a call at 773-985-3992.
And don't forget to ask for Hawk
or
and Pete.
Patti Vasquez is taking your calls now at 773-763-9278. Driving it home with Patti Vasquez now on WCPT 820.
Thank you so much for joining us. I am Patti Vasquez, taking over the last hour of Joan's show. She had an extraordinary broadcast with our union brothers and sisters, and so we'll drive it home until 7. I saw on my caller line what the topic was going to be, and I've been trying to find more information in particular about these topics because you're both calling on similar issues. Linda is calling from LaGrange. Linda, thank you so much for calling. What's on your mind, my friend?
Yes, hello.
Hi.
It's about the Department on Aging.
Mm-hmm.
Do they plan on making any cuts on the DOA, which I believe works out of Health and Human Services?
Right. So it's the Older Americans Act is the federal arm of that. It's an umbrella law that includes programs like the Meals on Wheels, senior transportation, information services, just for folks who are curious. The House, now I haven't seen, I'm trying to find the latest information because this is from several weeks ago. Originally, it looked like there was a measure that they were, because remember they had an emergency end of year spending bill at the end of 2024, and the speaker had dropped the Older Americans Act from the budget measure. And it seems as though that funding at the time was at risk, and it's going to be. It seems like it's in the mix. I'm trying to find information about where they are on the current negotiations with the budget, and specifically what kind of cuts they're proposing. Because I know directly Medicaid was one of the things, and I'm trying to find if that's. I don't know that it falls under the same funding package as Medicaid, but I'm trying to find that information, and I will work on finding that. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much.
Of course. But I will say, hold on a second. Medicaid. Yeah, I'll find more information because I'm trying to do it really fast and I don't want to misinform you. Okay, Linda?
Uh-huh.
Thank you. Is this something you're concerned about for yourself or a family member?
No. Yeah, actually it is for myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, have you talked to any of the folks? And I know, like the providers, they've got to be nervous too because these are their jobs. So yes, you know what? Let me try to find out. I'll talk to some folks within our agencies to find out what they've heard. Okay, and get more information for you in the next day or two.
If they were going to reduce funding, that means that the people that are in the outlying areas in the local DOE offices may have to leave their positions too then, right?
That might be possible. I mean, that's if you're going to be cutting the services, and who knows if they're federal. I mean, I imagine those are that's through the Department of Aging as an Illinois branch. So it's more the funding. The state might not eliminate those positions if they can avoid it.
Yeah, because they're the ones that help us and get us the things we are entitled to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Linda, I like I said, I know that it was gonna make folks concerned, and it's just so unfortunate. It's so unfortunate, and I apologize that this is something that worries you. Okay, we'll do our best to make sure you stay informed.
All right, thank you very much, then.
Okay, thank you, Linda. Take care.
Bye.
Dan is calling from Michigan. Dan, thanks for tuning in. What's on your mind, my friend?
Yes, good afternoon. First-time caller, listen to you every day. Michigan City, Indiana, actually.
Oh, great. Yeah, we come in pretty clear there, don't we?
Yes, absolutely. What I'm asking, what I'm wondering, God knows we all are. I was wondering about the status of what's going to happen to nursing homes.
Yeah,
in this current situation.
Yeah, that's the thing is I just don't. This is the problem with going in with a sledgehammer rather than a scalpel and calling things like funding for programs like that you and Linda are both calling about as though those are just waste, right? The assumption is that the government can't do anything well, and yet we know that so many communities, so many families rely on those services, whether it's early intervention for babies, disability services, education. And certainly the people that so many of voters say, oh, of course we want to make sure our grandmas and grandpas are taken care of. And yet they do the total opposite because it's just too expensive and we have to give tax cuts to billionaires. So I would imagine that nursing homes would come under Medicare, right? Would come under Medicare funding.
Well, Medicaid.
Yeah. Well,
no,
yes.
Yeah. Unless it's a Medicare situation, but other than that, it's Medicaid.
Right. So I have to. I'm trying to figure out. So when Governor Quinn for Illinois, I'm talking specifically for Illinois, when he put in trigger language, I don't know if Indiana has or Michigan. You said Michigan City, Indiana.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys have trigger language where if your federal funding falls below a certain level, then you rescind, because we rescind funding to people who are on the ACA. And I assume that that's in part to shore up spending so that we can put it towards things like nursing homes and the services for the disabled and things like that, and sort of kick off what is considered to be folks who just couldn't afford health insurance.
Yes, well, I understand that. But my point is, what if they cut the Medicaid and they cut everything else like they're talking about? What happens to these people? My wife and I are in our 70s. We're thinking of selling the house and moving to Ireland to get out of here.
You're not alone.
I'm just wondering what happens when they do that to the millions of people that are in nursing homes? I'm just wondering. Nursing homes will close, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, it's and I'm quickly going through an article right now about how this would affect nursing homes. Direct cuts to seniors. The biggest direct risk could come from cuts to Medicaid home-based care or other optional services. States are only required to provide Medicaid LTSS in nursing homes. So nursing homes might be less vulnerable, but it's still, then you have the problem with people who no longer have home-based care, then having to turn to nursing homes, which then, there are billionaires like Rauner, our former governor, who benefit from more people being in nursing homes. So then it's kind of like our penal system, where the people who make money off of having people arrested, we also make more money. They make more money off of putting folks who can't perhaps, while they're independent in their homes, need a little bit of aid, but without that, then have to turn to nursing homes. So there are also benefits through voluntary waivers, so they could limit home-based services, which, like I said, would then put a strain.
But you don't see what I've heard and read, that multiple, well, let's just say thousands of nursing homes are going to have to close all over the country. If this continues on the path that it's on.
Yeah. It's horrifying, and I don't have anything. I honestly don't know where I can even give you a ray of a hope on this one, because they seem dead set on cutting Medicaid. I don't know. I honestly, it makes absolutely no sense to me to do that. We know that there is a certain, the amount of what might be considered in these folks' minds waste or fraud is the change in a couch compared to the kinds of billions of dollars that the mega rich are taking from our country in contracts and tax cuts and passive incomes. It's ridiculous.
It's enough to make you sick. My entire family has served in the military, and this is what we get. It's disgusting. It really is.
May I ask, however, just on a slightly lighter note, what part of Ireland would you move to?
Whatever part would take us.
Do you have any family history in Ireland? Do you have any relatives?
Yes, we do.
Yes,
we do. But they're very distant.
They're very distant. Yeah, because I know there's some folks.
And now I find out that our passports expired a few months ago, and I guess that's going to be a real runaround to try to get the passports.
We'll get started. That's the only, and I would say it's for everybody. have, and for whatever reason, just in general, we don't know what's going to be going on with the post office, how they're going to process applications for passports. People who want, there's a whole thing going on with Mexico and visas in Mexico from America. So get your passports if they're set to expire or if they have expired. I know that Congressman Quigley often talks about this, making sure that you get those things done too, just in general. Dan, I want to thank you so much for calling, and I wish I had better news for you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it very much.
All right, thanks so much, Dan. Appreciate it.
All right,
have a good night. Let's take a quick break here, and we'll come back in just a moment on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal. I'm Patti Vasquez taking over the last hour of Jones' show as we drive it home till 7. The phone number is 773-763-9278. That's the number to call or text, and we would love to hear from you. If you're nice, because by the way, Paul's answering the phone, and I will tell him to put you right on the air if you say anything nasty to him. Just put more in a moment. Hi, this is Patti Vasquez. We appreciate all our fans of Driving It Home, and your support of show sponsor Minocqua Brewing Company ensures that our important conversations continue right here on WCPT each weekday from 5 to 7 p.m. You can now find the Resistance IPA, Labor Lager, or the Resistance Pilsner beer at several Illinois locations, including Arminetti Wine and Spirits in Woodstock, Pineapple and Company in North Riverside, Lions Beverage Depot in Arlington Heights, and MP's Liquor, Wine and Beer in North Aurora. For a full list of Chicagoland locations, please visit MinocquaBrewingCompany.com. As always, please vote and drink responsibly.
Patti Vasquez is taking your calls now at 773-763-9278. Driving it home with Patti Vasquez now on WCPT 820.
This is Patti Vasquez taking over the last hour of Jones' show. She had a great broadcast with our union brothers and sisters. And by the way, that reminds me, if there's any show that you miss and you want to hear those conversations or you want to go back and hear it again, please make sure you're checking out all of our podcasts. Richard Chu, Jonas Pizzito, and me. We have our podcasts available at heartlandsignal.com or wherever you listen to your podcasts, like on Spotify, Amazon, Apple, all those places. And some of our interviews are also peeled out and highlighted, so you can listen to some of those standalone interviews. And I want to take a couple we have texts that I want to get to before I get another phone call. Well, he's calling from San Francisco, so I should probably take the call. He's on hold. Hey, David in San Francisco, how are you doing, my friend?
Well, not too bad, Kelly.
I meant to say, are you hydrating? I'm not supposed to ask how you're doing. I told myself I wouldn't do that. How are you hydrating?
Well, I'm like a turkey, and whenever it starts raining, I turn my head to the sky, and I'm almost drowned. And we're about to get some rain, it looks like. What I was going to raise, we got April 15th is coming up, and I don't personally think that it's smart or patriotic to put any money into the Treasury. I think it'd be a damn fool idea if we, the people, were to park our money in a place where Elon Musk has had little hackers going. So there are legal ways. There are legal ways that you can donate to some charity, or you can put your money into an IRA real quick, and it'll count toward this year. I'm sure there are some nonprofits that, cleaning up hazardous wastes. You might have a nice list of Chicago charities that, people park it over there, especially if they're actually doing some good. And the idea of library bond issues, too, school bond issues, I'd bet that there are 1,000 different bond issues that would love to have some reinforcements. So, just the whole idea of we, the people, have got to protect the Treasury from looters, and not parking it there is probably a smart idea.
Well, and that's so you're saying if you owe money, because obviously if you are getting a refund, get that as fast as possible is all I'm saying. Get that as soon as you can. Now, you're saying if you owe taxes, try to see if you have the wherewithal. Of course, a lot of people are just going to be struggling to even pay. Taxes are so stressful. I can't even begin. Like, my eye starts to twitch. As soon as you mentioned taxes, I was like, oh, God. You make a good point. If you have the ability, and I love the idea. You said library,
bond issue?
So you can get a bond?
Like a bond issue. Yeah, and, the school bond issues, sewer bond issues, that's actually reinvesting in your own hometown, right? And or you think if you're old, if you're new to Chicago and your Bug Tussle needs a sewer system, and park it over there that's possession is 9/10 of the law. And the other idea is, like, if people, even somebody fairly poor that only has $75 cash they owe the IRA or IRS, that's $75 they can park it in there. If they've got an IRA, they can park it in there and count it for this year or last year.
Yes.
So the idea that I don't want any money going into Elon. And actually, if we did enough of a campaign nationwide, none of those guys would want to show up over there because there wouldn't be anything. It'd be like going to a ghost town. So, if we might be able to save our lives by not having the Treasury a pleasant place for Elon to be.
Are you planning on participating in the coming up this Friday? People are not going to spend any money, at the big box stores or on Amazon, things like that. Shop local, try to use cash so you're not also relying on your credit cards. That's this Friday, and I think they're scheduling some to Target specific, including Target and Walmart. So they're having specific days for that. So you're going to be participating in that as well?
Oh, sure. And as a matter of fact, you probably got your Facebook going. I got a list of the Project 2025 corporations. I think, of course, the Cokes are a big part of that. Ulean, if you go down to like U-Haul or something like that and you rent boxes, those are Ulean boxes. So boycott Ulean. They're supposed to be the second worst company of Project 2025. And they make things like tape and cardboard supplies and all sorts of things. So, let's find another way to get our stuff there without Ulean products. But I'll try to post this nice list that I saw the other day on your Facebook angle, and we boycotting them right away. They'll scream for mercy if the boycott works quick enough. And then, of course, like I was saying, if we can make the Treasury an unattractive place because it's ghost town empty, then even his little Doge hackers won't show up for work.
I have, because I'm the mother of a 21-year-old, part of me has hopes that, like, there's something that gets through to these young men that turns them around and makes them see that there's some sort of cartoon villain narrative. But I do want to go back to something you said about the biggest funders of Project 2025. I know I just saw this. The three biggest corporate donors are ExxonMobil, Walmart, and number one, and I had to ask my husband yesterday, I'm like, stop buying Leinenkugel because you'd be surprised. That is a Coors company, Molson Coors. That is the biggest funder of the Heritage Foundation and Project 2025. And they have a huge...
Long, all the way back to Gerald Ford and Richard Nixon. Coors was like in the ugliest cork. I can remember when we were just getting to be 18 and boycotting Coors. He was a big supporter of the Vietnam War, and then when the death squads were going on in El Salvador, that was Coors. Oliver North, boy, he kissed up to Oliver North. Coors has always been dumb and ugly. And as a matter of fact, I used to live out there in Denver, and Golden, Colorado, it has so much arsenic and lead from the old gold mine operations. Back in the 1800s, they had gold mines, but they just poisoned that Golden River, or that river that runs through Golden, Colorado, which is where Coors gets their water from.
Jeez.
It's a smart idea to boycott them anyway, much less that they've been probably drinking that lead for so long. That's why they're insane.
Oh, golly. And by the way, folks, you just Google Molson Coors, and unfortunately, if you like beer, you'll find something you like on the list, but there's so many alternatives out there, including Minocqua Brewing Company. You can go to MinocquaBrewingCompany.com. But I like to have a high life. I like a good cheap beer sometimes. David, like a Hams. I can't have that anymore. All the Leinenkugels, what do you call it? What's the one that has like the clove orange, Blue Moons. Those are all.
Well, don't they have little startup breweries up there? We had like 500 of them going for a long time, and then I'm sure many of them still exist. The little startup breweries. Give them a boost. Make a local beer.
Yeah, folks, Lake Effect, Chicago, in the Chicago area. You got Old Irving Brewery is great. Just to name a couple. I know there's tons. Horse Thief is great. Yeah, there's tons of great Chicago. Founders is awesome. Revolution. Now I'm thirsty, David. See what we did to ourselves? I really appreciate this conversation with you, my friend.
Sure. Yeah, just looking at that idea. Don't park your money in the Treasury on April 15th. Find a way to dodge it. And there are plenty of legal ways of doing it. You might have, I know your mayor's under attack. See if he's got any bond issues that he'd like to push.
Yeah, I know he's trying to get some borrowing done, and I think that we are selling something. So I don't know if they're trying to get any. Yeah, well, there's so much information in my head now, David. I don't have a good handle on all of it. I just know a little bit of everything, I think. Thanks, David.
Make it be patriotic to be a skinflint.
There you go. Yes. Yeah, that for sure. You know, I've been going to the thrift stores. That's been my main avenue of shopping lately is going to the thrift store, especially my neighborhood, Norwood Park Thrift. So I like that one. Oh, no.
Take care.
I'm just sad I said that on the air because now it's going to be busy over there. No, I want them to be busy. I want them to be successful. Have a good one, David.
Good week.
Thank you. Let me make sure I get to our Uline, owned by Dick and Liz Uline. They are brutal. And I believe, do they still live in Illinois? They've also gotten their hands into our politics, of course, in Wisconsin as well, where the Koch brothers have done a lot of work there. Scheduled protests. Thank you for this. Our friend that just texted this over from the 773. Appreciate that. So, today, that was last week. So, let's see. February 28th is going to be Hit Them in Their Profits, economic blackout protest. No spending for 24 hours. You make sure you buy the things you need the day before. I would say, for me, I'm still going to shop with cash at my. Actually, that's probably a good day for me to go to my Rep Chai, go get something to eat over at the Gale Street Inn, or maybe some pizza from our neighborhood joints like Papa Joe's or Joe's on Higgins. So that's February 28th from midnight to 24 hours. Local time, 12 a.m. to 11:59 p.m. So don't shop online or buy any of the stuff. And I know it's hard. There's so many things that we've kind of just grown accustomed to automatically, renewing things and buying it, and it's so easy. You can get it there. You can get it there by the end of the day. We just rely on it so much. On from March 7th through the 14th, U.S. and world oligarch #1 protest, Amazon. No buying from Amazon for a week. It's not a march. It's just March 17th through the 14th. Do not buy anything from Amazon for 1 week. And then on Friday, March 14th, they are calling for a national strike. No work for 24 hours. All workers, all businesses, and all higher education organizations. This is not a march. Again, they're calling for this for 24 hours on March 14th. So this is some of the scheduled protests that a listener has sent us. Let me see if I have a minute to get to the rest of these. I don't. I have 40 seconds. No, I have 30. Okay, keep talking, Patty. I know I talk fast, but I'm trying to get to all of these. Let me get second thing. One thing that hasn't been mentioned since Trump has been in office, the bankruptcy mark on your credit report isn't supposed to be there anymore if you file bankruptcy because of medical bills, thanks to the Biden administration. However, the Trump administration got rid of that. Now, if you get behind on your medical bills, it goes against your credit report again. Being cruel and hateful is what this administration is all about. No doubt. Thank you for that text from the 847. I want to make sure I don't, that's a lot. I know there's a lot happening all at once, and I haven't gotten clarification from about whether I can say D-bags and use the word. Let's take a break. Well, let's end the Joan Esposito show, live, local, and progressive. We're going to continue to drive it home when we come back on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal. I'm your host, Patti Vasquez, and the phone lines will be open we'll have them open, but the best time to call is right after 5 because I have time. More in a moment on WCPT.
Driving it home with Patti Vasquez, Patti Vasquez.
From global conflicts to greenhouse gases, the folks refusing to wear masks says, and politicians getting caught grabbing ass says, she's driving it home with Patti Vasquez.
Hello, everybody. We are continuing the second hour of my show as I took over the last hour of Joan's show. She was out in Joliet, broadcasting with our union brothers and sisters, having really important conversations about the future of labor and working class families under this administration. I want to thank our sponsor, Source Solar. Over 100,000 happy customers have had solar panels installed on their house. Find out how you can be a part of that happy group. Go to source.solar for more information, and Peter and Warren can hook you up, and we'll be having conversations with them in the weeks to come so you can learn more about the work they do. And of course, we want to thank Minocqua Brewing Company, one of our initial sponsors of the Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez show. Go to MinocquaBrewingCompany.com to find out about all the great brews and wines and coffee and sodas that they carry. And they also have some great t-shirts and baseball hats. So check out their line of progressive gear at MinocquaBrewingCompany.com. And please subscribe to their newsletter, because I and Ben Cominos and several other writers do columns for them every single week. And we are supported by your purchases on those newsletters. So thank you. We have a full show today, so I wanted to make sure we had the phone lines open and so we can take your calls and find out what's on your mind, including Jim in Chicago. My friend, what's on your mind?
Hi, Patty. The doomsday clock will open in 9 seconds of midnight.
Did it really?
As of January. That's the closest it's been since the inception in 1947. That's when the scientists got together to. But now it's 9 seconds. The closest has been to midnight since 1947. So put that in your pipe and smoke it. That's good news.
I'd rather not.
And the other, the other one is, I was praying for Pope Francis. He was strong enough to make a phone call to a parish in Gaza today, and I was always hoping that he would outlast his Antichrist and be elected president of the United States.
I know, but
look at what's going on. Musk thinks he is going to. You imagine getting you go to work, and we want to get right down what you do at work and why you're at work and what are you doing at work. And I mean, can you imagine how absolutely, not even intrusive, but how absolutely illogical that is? So what if everybody went to work today? You went to work and, for the city, and they asked you, well, why do we want to know everything you did during the day and why you're working here? But the point is, when I turn this in, who's going to, who are the people who are going to review it? Who's going to review this stuff?
No idea, but I'll tell you something else that people are that some folks I've been watching some videos online that they are encouraging folks to send things because they made the email public. So people are sending pictures of their cats and their kids on the potty and all kinds of stuff. I don't know if that's a good idea, Jim, because I don't need them to know that I'm.
I wouldn't send that hideous looking South African a picture of my whomever, one of my Irish ancestors. You know what I mean? I wouldn't send him anything. I wouldn't even respond to it.
No.
Because think about how evil that is. Just even think of that idea.
It's so dehumanizing.
Well, yeah, but I mean, nobody would do it. Nobody in their right mind would do it. And I love the European Union today. They said, go scratch Russia, and the only three votes were, this is us now. It was Russia, North Korea, and us. We're the only three people that voted against the fair outcome of Ukraine. So believe it or not, we're actually voting with North Korea and Russia. And if you tell me this is the Antichrist, I'll eat my hat on State Madison. Anyway, thanks for taking my call.
Of course, Jim.
Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good one. Yeah. And by the way, to Jim's point about the doomsday clock, if you're not familiar, and this is something I've kind of heard in the background. It was founded in 1945 by Albert Einstein and Oppenheimer and University of Chicago scientists who helped develop the first atomic weapons in the Manhattan Project. And they created the doomsday clock using the imagery of apocalypse, which would be midnight, and the contemporary idiom of nuclear explosion. Moving us closer to midnight. It's 89 seconds to midnight, which is, as Jim mentioned, it's a stark signal, and it's the closest it's been to a catastrophe since that, like a long time ago. So I guess they're saying the folks from the Doomsday Clock, the folks that manage that, say that their hope is that leaders will recognize the world's existential predicament and take bold action to reduce the threats posed by nuclear weapons, climate change, and the potential misuse of biological science and a variety of emerging technologies. So that's a lot they packed in there. So there is a lot going on in the news, and it's so hard to grab onto what is, I guess, grabbing your attention. Of course, I don't know if anyone saw today that the president of France, President Macron, was at the White House, and Trump was saying something. Donald was saying something about loans, and all I know is that Macron reached over and grabbed his arm and corrected him. He fact-checked him in real time, which is something you always like to see. And then I haven't gotten a handle on the story where he says that we're going to have the Ukraine war over. And the idea that even now, like, Fox hosts are just sitting there, and any of these right-wing hosts, and even on CNN, I think I saw a host is sort of like, let the lies just wash over us. I mean, these folks need to be cut off from the moment they say that Ukraine started the war. They invited Russia to attack them. This isn't even moving the goalposts. This is just going, well, we're playing a different game altogether. You're the one playing football. We're over here playing baseball. I don't know why that's not a good analogy. I'm just so angry that they are now trying to gaslight us into believing that Ukraine started the war, that they shouldn't have let it. What the freaking frack? It makes me so angry. Again, to see some of these hosts just sit there and sort of nod and not say anything. Let's see. We are... someone just texted me how much Target has lost. They, in the wake of a lot of protest, people not go. I have not shopped at Target. I'm trying to shop local. I also downloaded the Costco app. I'm not really ready to buy things in bulk right now, so I'm just trying to make some space in my basement because I wanted to buy some of those. We buy Kleenex holders that are good for like the cup holder in your car, and you apparently have to buy a pack of like 54, and I'm not ready for that yet. So we're trying to find other sources. But so far, according to this message, Target has lost $15.7 billion in market value when they announced DEI rollbacks, and the stock dropped. The blackout date is February 28th. No one buying anything from there or anywhere else that participated in DEI rollbacks. By the way, I know that I feel like we talk about this so much about what it means when we evoke the words diversity, equity, inclusion. I really appreciated something that Tom Hartman said last week, because the misconception, the lies that are spread that somehow they lower the standards, that merit isn't weighted as much as perhaps skin color or gender. And first of all, it's not just based on ethnicity or gender. It's also disability. It is also veterans. And again, the people who benefit most from diversity, equity, and inclusion are white women. And that's because, first of all, we didn't even our ability to participate in the workplace and different areas was limited for decades, and the same for black people and with people with disabilities. I mean, they're folks that are just uncomfortable. They don't want to hire someone with a disability. It's icky to them. It's scary. It's chaos, and it is having these standards to say, like, you here. It's not about hiring a less qualified woman or person of color or veteran or person with a disability. It's about not hiring the unqualified white person because you don't want to hire the person of color or woman or person with a disability or a veteran. I know that you don't believe me. I know that you don't agree. And what makes me crazy is that there was diversity, equity, inclusion programs in place under the last administration that this knucklehead had. I don't even know. I hate using his name. When the MAGA was in office the first time, all those programs were in place. And nobody was screaming about. When did this start? Was it about a year ago when like Nick Fuentes started screaming about DEI and the Fox broadcasters were like, well, if I see a woman in the cockpit, I'm not. If I see a black person behind, because the assumption is that unless it's a white person, nobody else can do that job, and I hate that. That's not the case, folks. So that makes me super crazy, and I think it makes a lot of you outraged. So I don't get it. I don't. This was, all about just owning the libs, making sure that people that don't look like you don't get something that you think that they don't deserve it. Oh my God. And look, I remember I had a friend in college. My mother's from Mexico, and I qualified as an undergrad. I did not know this. I knew that I was a National Honor Scholar. I had a pretty good GPA. I had done fairly well on my standardized tests to get into college, the SAT. I didn't do well on the ACT, I'll be honest with you. But I was planning to go to either Illinois University. I just figured for how much it cost, I thought that Northern Illinois or ISU were probably going to be my schools of choice. I wanted to study history and then go to law school. So I just figured and so University of Illinois was, and my college counselor told me that I was better off going to ISU or NIU. And then we got a letter. We got a letter recruiting me because they were seeking, and I will tell you this. Once I got into college, because I'm a Latina and had this opportunity, I was on the honors list every single semester because I worked my ass off, because there were people who did treat me like I didn't belong there. And I know that this is, if you look at the sort of the history of Clarence Thomas, he talks about how he resented the fact that people treated him like he was there because he was black, and that he wasn't getting job. Like this whole psychology of Clarence Thomas. And I've thought about this because, again, there were people who would tell me like, oh, well, my parents worked really hard and I didn't get a break like you did. I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. I definitely am working really hard to be here, to deserve this. I graduated with highest honors, magna cum laude. I can't remember what the thing is, but Clarence Thomas talks in some of these interviews and having all this resentment and not getting hired. He got hired by the Equal Opportunity, I think the EEOC. And I thought, if you listen to it in interviews, is it possible that it was his personality that prevented him from being hired from a lot of these places? Because I'm just, not for nothing, but if you come with a chip on your shoulder and you're a jerk about things, I wouldn't want to have you in my office either. He does not seem like somebody that a lot of employers would just want to have in general. It's his personality. That struck me over the years. Let's take a break here, and when we come back, we're going to talk to Jen Zanotti for our Motivational Monday. 773-763-9278. I'll keep taking your texts, and I'll try to take your calls in between guests and such. So let's take a break here and check in with Jen when we come back on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal. Go to heartlandsignal.com, by the way, and check out all of our great broadcasts.
If you're listening to this station right now, you've definitely heard my voice before. Hi, I'm Hawk.
And I'm Pete. And we're with Source Solar, your local source for solar. Source Solar is Chicagoland's premier solar installer, providing solutions for over 1,000 homeowners and business owners across Illinois and Iowa.
With over a decade of industry experience and deep roots here in Chicago, we have the expertise to help your transition to clean, renewable, resilient energy.
We can guarantee that we save you money day one without any out-of-pocket cost to you. This means you have an instant ROI, instant payback, and can save money to add to your bottom line day one.
At Source Solar, we source everything as local as possible, meaning we always carry the Made in USA sticker.
Find us online at www.source.solar. Stop in our office at 5710 North Northwest Highway, or give us a call at 773-985-3992.
And don't forget to ask for Hawk
or
and Pete.
You're listening to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez.
In your communities, in Chicago.
On WCPT 820.
Thank you for joining us as we drive it home. I want to welcome our Monday regular, Jen Zanotti. I moved her up because it's a busy show today, but we need her. We need her attention on our emotions today. I know you asked me what we were going to talk about today, and I forgot to respond, Jen, because I'm overwhelmed. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm a little, and that's going to be my question to you. Is there's so many things that people are reacting to, and I think that I'll be honest with you. I had an anxiety attack today because because I just was sort of spinning so many plates, whether it was personal and then work and then what's going on nationally. Like I felt this tightness in my chest, and I don't know. So I'm turning to you because one of my solutions is generally I have to say out loud, you're okay. Nothing bad is happening to you right now. Meaning like I'm not dying. I'm not, I'm not bleeding. I'm not, what I mean? Like essentially, even though I don't feel okay physically, nothing bad is happening to me in the moment. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I got to say it out loud. What do you recommend for folks who need? I think we've talked about meditation, and I think that's something to keep coming back to, right? Even if it's just 2 minutes, 5 minutes a day, to just regulate your tuning into yourself. Don't you think?
Absolutely. It's funny that we're kind of discussing this. So I just literally flew back today from Chicago back to Maryland. And when I was going on the way out, my husband had sent me a podcast because, of course, even though I talk about this and help clients, like I have a lot on my plate and I get anxious and I'm a worrier. I come from a family of worriers. And he sent me this podcast that was really good. And I suggest it. It's actually called Emotional Badass. And it's a psychotherapist on there, and she talks about 9 quick and powerful strategies to stop catastrophic thinking and uplift your mind. So this, I felt like, for so many reasons, was very on point. But one of the things that she talked about that I really love is if you are, a worrier or you're stressed about something in particular, to set a timer for how long you can worry about that. Because it's not going to really serve you any purpose to be, worrying about something you can't really control. It's going to just cause so much stress and anxiety, and it hinders your health, and especially if you're doing this like long-term or it's chronic, right? So just to say, okay, this is what's going on right now. I always talk about feeling your feelings, right, and your emotions, but I'm going to set a timer to dedicate 2 minutes to really just let my mind go crazy and kind of worry about this thing. And then once you're done with that, you have to let go and kind of just move on. And another thing she talked about that I talk a lot about with my clients and we've talked about is, yes, of course, meditation, but journaling and writing down the things that you are either overwhelmed about, that you're scared of, that you're stressed about. Because when you start writing things down, you're making room in your mind a little bit. You're kind of taking that out of your head and putting it on paper. So it's a physical act that helps with stress relief. But you're also, I think, looking at, okay, this is what I'm worried about. This is kind of the worst case scenario. What would I do if this happened? I think that's important because then we kind of have a plan and realize, okay, this is going to be okay. Like short term, this is fine. Like you said, you're physically healthy, even though it feels like you have all these crazy things going on. The world is crazy, but what can you control at this moment? And maybe when I write it on paper and take it out of my mind, it's a little less scarier.
Yes.
But I loved the timer aspect of okay, I'm going to allow myself to worry about this, but short term and for just a few minutes, right? I can dedicate that. And then I feel like I've done that and I can kind of just let go, right? And let go of the things that are out of my control, but let go at the moment and, see what happens and just kind of move on with the rest of my day so that I'm not causing all this stress and anxiety inside.
That sounds so smart. I love that, to have a timer for, as long as it's already in my mind, because sometimes trying to stop thinking about something, then it just sort of it already has momentum. But if you can sort of put a fence around it and go, okay, it can stay inside the fence. I know it's there. I'm going to tend to it now.
Exactly.
And I'll come back later.
Then I think, right. But even in that, you catch yourself in that moment, set a timer. I'm going to let myself worry about this for, 2 minutes, whatever. 2 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever it is. Obviously, there's different levels of things, right, that could be going on. So, but I think also, one of the things she also said that I also talk about a lot is what, focus on the things you can control. Right. Yes. And I think that's the biggest thing everything else we have to release a little bit, or set that timer to worry, but let's focus on the things that we can control. Let's take little steps. If you're overwhelmed and you feel like you have a lot of plates spinning and, things are going on, make a list. See what you need to prioritize, what to focus on first. Little steps each day, right, towards that goal. Every single thing doesn't have to get done at that moment, right? So I think when you schedule it out and kind of organize your thoughts a little bit more, it relieves some stress and you're going to be way more successful.
I love that. And it's funny you mentioned, what are the things you can control? I remember this was one of the things I felt most proud when the boys were little, especially with Griffin, who would, if things didn't go his way or he was really upset about something, I would tell him, there are a lot of things we can't control. We can only control how we react to them. And for some reason I talked about being a tree that bends in a storm, there are trees that snap and there are trees that can weather the storm, be the weeping willow or whatever it is that can weather the storm. And I think we have to come back to that because things are happening so fast and so aggressively that it can be hard to be mindful about it. So I want everyone to take a deep breath right now. How do you do you have some of those practices where you tell someone to hold on to hold it at the top, or let it out for a count? Yeah. Is there anything you find helpful with that?
You can. I think it kind of slows down your breath a little bit. It makes it more intentional when you are kind of adding a count to it. So you can, you could do square breathing. You could breathe in for 4, and then you can hold for 4, and then you can release nice and slowly for 4 count. So you can, when you put a little bit of a rhythm on it like that, you're becoming a little more intentional, you're being more present, you're focusing on that breath. And you're just, a lot of times, we've talked about this, I feel like people don't breathe properly or just aren't, it's very shallow breath. So
yes.
You want to take a deep belly breath, right? But yes, it's we're not, it's am I breathing? We're just so quick to do things or anxious or this, that, whatever. And it's just slow down, just slow down for a minute and focus on your breath.
It's funny you say that because I have to go to the office several days a week, and it's when I'm at the office that I realize how loudly I sigh.
Yeah, you probably haven't released your breath. You're oh my gosh. Yeah.
I have one more question before we go. Again, we're talking to Jen Zanotti, allthingsgenz.com, to find out about the work that she does. In this vein of being mindful of when you're thinking about something that's setting you off and causing you anxiety, I've talked to folks who are older who are it's too late for me. This is how I function. Talk a little bit about not allowing yourself to be set in some sort of path that is unbreakable for the rest of your life. It's never too late. You're never too old.
You're never too old. I know people get stuck in their routines, but it's just creating a new habit, right? Or changing something if you want to, right? So usually a habit takes about 30 days to get into the rhythm. So you can absolutely create change. You can wake up tomorrow and change your life. You could, add in new routines, new habits. You just have to be consistent, but you can definitely approach things in a different way, because maybe the way you've been doing it hasn't been working, right? So I think being open to having conversations with people and being able to try new things to help you be a little bit more mindful and calm and dealing with stress, I think you might actually find them helpful. So you can always add something new into your routine. It's never too late.
Yeah, I'm so, by the way, my new thing that I do, I don't think I ever told you this, when when you would see these workout video ads for, buy this DVD, I used to just do the workout that they were showing on the commercial. So I just do a bunch of I would pause the TV and just do whatever that was. Now I do that. So whenever I come across a post that does a workout, I make myself do that workout if I can. At home.
That's awesome.
I know, some squats, some arm exercise. I can keep my weights nearby. I'm all right, I'm doing curls. All right, I'm doing some shoulder workouts. All right. So that's how I'm trying to get back in shape. Just do it. Meet yourself where you are is the best way to do it.
I love it. And we know that movement, and we talk about this all the time, but movement is such a great way to
Oh, here, wait.
That stress relief.
Let me address this, okay? So there's a listener who's upset that we're talking about this and being bubbly about it, and I don't mean to diminish anything. Believe me, I have a son who's severely disabled. My friend in the 815, who would most likely lose care, and we lost a check. My husband hasn't been paid because of what was done in January with that blockade of funding, that impoundment. So this listener is upset because there are people who are losing their homes, their benefits, their medical coverage, and we're talking about breathing. So what I want to say to the 815, and perhaps you're just tuning in and didn't hear the last hour of our conversation and talking about the very issues that you're worried about, is I need you, 815, to survive this. And part of that is finding the positivity in our lives, to be mindful of when things are just spiraling out of control. It feels out of control. I was talking about having an anxiety attack about the very things that you're talking about. So this is not an equivalent to thoughts and prayers. This is fundamentally trying to help all of us find ways to manage our emotions and our fears and our rage so that we can continue to fight for each other and be there for each other in our communities. Wouldn't you say, Jen?
Absolutely. And like we said, too, is allowing yourself to feel those emotions, setting that timer so that you can do that, because these are real issues and it's affecting a lot of people in different ways. And then, but once you kind of release those emotions in a healthy way, coming to the place of, okay, what can I do? Who can I reach out to for help? Setting that list of the things you can control to try and find those resources, right? I think if you are a little more organized, it's going to help you because it's got to feel so overwhelming. So just creating that checklist to be like, okay, this is step number one. This is the issue that I'm facing, and these are the things I have to do. These are the people I can reach out to help support me in this time of need, and kind of go from there. It's these small steps each day to help kind of address that bigger goal or bigger issue, because otherwise it may feel like you're drowning, and I feel like it's a lot to handle. And especially for one person, I think we've talked about this probably every week since the beginning of the year, is community and trying to find your people and the people you can trust and that can help support and who you can help support. But that community, I think, is so important so that you don't feel like you're going through something alone.
Yeah, I'm so sorry to 815 if it feels, look, this is intense, and I don't begrudge you for feeling that way. So I want to acknowledge that, and my apologies if it felt as though we were being disrespectful to how painful this is. We all process differently, so that was not my intention. So I hope that you were okay. I'm so sorry, and I hope that you can find some help. And if there's anything I can do to connect you with anybody to make sure that you are supported, I would like to be able to do that. So thank you, 815, for reaching out and for pointing that out. I don't want anyone to step into a conversation. Maybe they turn it on and feel like, oh, they're just being giggly. This is hard. And so I kind of pace today's show. I'm kind of pacing both with actions, with information, with some scary things. Jen, in the last hour, I said, if these Medicaid cuts go through, including my family, will be horrifically affected. It'll be catastrophic. Over 850,000 people stand to lose the Medicaid in the state of Illinois or their ACA. So I'm not breathing very well, and that's why I asked Jen to join us. I love you, Jen. Thank you so much.
I love you so much.
Thank
you.
We'll
talk soon.
Absolutely. AllThingsGenZ.com, my friends. Find the people in your communities that do the kind of work that she does. Take care, Jen.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye. Thank you. Let's take a break here. When we come back, we are going to talk to. I'm going to try to take as many phone calls as I can throughout the show and make sure that you are heard. This is obviously the primary goal of the show, is to be a place for these conversations. And coming up after this break, we are going to talk to our friend Patrick Cortese. I hope I'm saying his name correctly. Chair of the Democratic Party of McLean County. More after this, and we're going to talk about protests coming up in a little bit that are going on in Sterling. That'll happen tomorrow. More in a moment on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal. Union Strong Chicago continues to lead the way with progressive values and in preserving democracy. Your support of the Minocqua Brewing Company Super PAC efforts in Wisconsin and beyond strengthens the fight against MAGA Republicans. You can now purchase progressive beers like Labor Lager, Love Wins Fruited Sour, and the Resistance IPA in Chicago at Rogers Park Provisions, Diversity Beer, Wine, and Spirits in Lakeview, Park West Liquor, Wine, and Beer in Lincoln Park, Logan Square Liquors, and Tip Top Food and Liquors in Westtown. Visit visit MinocquaBrewingCompany.com for all their Chicagoland locations. As always, no matter how bad our sports teams are, please drink responsibly.
You're listening to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez.
In your communities, in Chicago.
On WCPT 820.
Thank you so much for joining us as we continue our drive home. We have on the line with us a guest we had in studio. I think you were on your way to Lake Geneva, maybe Lake Como last time I talked to you, Patrick Cortese, the chair of the Democratic Party of McLean County. How was that weekend?
It was fine, except we came down with that crud that's been going around. So I spent my New Year's Eve sick with the norovirus and laying in bed. But otherwise, it was a fine trip and a fine area to visit.
You had the norovirus? Dude.
My wife and I both did. Yeah, it was not fun.
Oh, I've had that. It's okay. We won't go into any details.
No.
You've recovered.
Nope.
You've recovered to live to fight to this battle of some. We've been talking about some of the implications of the cuts that the Republicans are suggesting, and you want to talk about the looming threat of or already the impact of tariffs. Tell us a little bit about what's going on in McLean County.
Sure. Well, I should give a little background for people who don't know. McLean County is the largest county in the state of Illinois. We're actually bigger than the state of Rhode Island, and most of our county is rural. So we are the nation's largest producer of corn and soybeans. And we export, I think we're in the top 5 of exporting soybeans in the country. So when we start talking about tariffs, especially on farm and agriculture items, recently the Brookings Institute did a study of which counties in the nation would be most affected by those types of tariffs. McLean County was in the top 20% in the nation, top 2 in the state. For the reasons that I just explained to you, much of our economy here in McLean County is based on agriculture, and you can't harm that. You can't make that more expensive and expect it not to affect our local economy.
Now, what do you say to people who are like, oh, well, the other countries have tariffs on us. This is just, we got to hit them back kind of a thing.
Well, I need to remind people that other countries don't pay tariffs. We do. So every tariff, every tax, every Trump tax that we put on these items, whether it's the actual soybeans and corn products, or if we're paying, so let's say another country decides to add on a tariff in retaliation for what we're putting on agricultural goods, maybe they put a tariff on steel. Well, now we're talking about how does that affect John Deere, who produces, farm equipment over in Peoria County? How does that affect a company like Rivian here in McLean County, who's one of the nation's largest electric vehicle producers, and accounts for 8,000 jobs here in McLean County?
Wow.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
Is this cutting through the noise for folks who, voted for this? Are you hearing anyone say, well, I didn't think it was going to affect us. Like, I just thought that was going to be because I would not be surprised, as you mentioned, that we're one of the, we stand to be amongst the hardest hit when it comes to soybeans and other products. Part of me also wonders how much they target blue states, because that seems to be part of their MO too, don't you think?
I think that was probably their intent. But according to an article in the Tribune today, especially when we're talking about soybeans, the vast majority of the soybean crop here in Illinois is grown, obviously, downstate, which is mostly heavily Republican counties.
Right.
So, yes, I do think there's going to be – I think a lot of folks said, oh, well, that's fine, and they don't maybe really, truly understand the implications until they see what happens in the markets for their, for their corn product or their soybeans, right? So they have to go and buy new equipment, right?
Yeah.
Or I'll give you another example. So we were talking about how easing tariffs in other countries. One of the biggest needs for a farm here in Illinois is fertilizer. Your fertilizer is made of potash. we get, I want to say it's like 80% of potash comes from Canada. Guess who just put a large tariff on potash, right? A key fertilizer ingredient. So it's just going to jack up prices all across the board, and nobody wins, right? Yeah. We've got the U.S. aid, I'll call it embargo, and there is currently billions of dollars of food sitting on pallets, just rotting away, right? And this is a market that Illinois farmers are used to supplying, and now there's nowhere for them to sell their wares.
And are you hearing from some of those farmers, some of those producers of those products?
Definitely. I was encouraged to see that the Illinois Farm Bureau and even the McLean County Farm Bureau have come out and spoken out publicly against these types of tariffs. I hope it can get through the noise. I heard a little bit of your conversation earlier. You know, part of what they're trying to do is make us drink out of a fire hose, right? You can't possibly handle and absorb and digest all what's happening at one time. And so they're hoping things like this kind of fall through the cracks, right? That you miss this. So it's our job as a county party. It's our job, you and I, Patty, and other folks who are talking about these things, to make sure people understand and people know, right? When they go to the store and they see that the prices of eggs have not gone down since you've gotten office, they've doubled, right? Make sure we're pointing out why that happened and who's responsible. That's our job.
Do you know if any organizations, you know, that day in January when they try, was it January, February? It's all, time is so nebulous at this point. When they try to do the impoundment of federal funding for any programs, you know, across the country, and it sort of sent everybody into a tailspin and access to portals and things like that. Did you hear from anybody in your community who now realizes that services that they rely on are on the chopping block or are vulnerable?
Sure. So one of the, and I'm not sure the path, but there's a soybean research firm in Champaign that employs a large number of people, and they're responsible for a lot of the developments and creating new strains of soybeans and doing a lot of the research that makes farming more profitable. They lost their entire funding, so that's all done. They all got laid off. They all lost their jobs, and now there's nobody doing that kind of research, right, to make sure that our farmers are getting the best technology, using the best strains of seed to be the most profitable.
Yeah, that's wild. Because I wonder, you know, as far as I don't know how to articulate this because I've been thinking about it for the last few days. As far as our General Assembly, of course, is working on a budget here in Illinois. They're down in Springfield, and part of me wonders, you know, there's a lot. The governor's address was important, was significant. I thought it was great. Have you heard any feedback from his speech? Because I know a lot of folks felt like it was, he didn't have to make allusions to fascism and Nazis. What have you heard in your neck of the woods?
Well, most of the people in McLean County were appreciative and glad that we have a governor that was willing to say those things out loud, to say those things publicly. I did talk to one friend of mine, and she had heard from some friends in Springfield that they were outraged that he would refer to fascism and Nazis. And her thought on it was, well, if that's what they took away from that message, maybe they ought to be looking at themselves.
Yeah, I know. So the question I have then, because he talked about how we're going to have to do more with less. What if Democrats were as vindictive, at the state level as Republicans are at the federal level, because they're going to be targeting blue states. They've said it out loud. And then they are going after programs that affect people in every state, and especially red states, because they actually they get more funding from us because we pay in more than Iowa, Indiana, when it comes to services back. But can you imagine if the Democrats decided, well, we're not going to send money to the red areas of Illinois and make sure that they feel the squeeze? How crazy would that be?
It would be insane, and we would never hear the end of it. It would be broadcast on every network and podcast and radio show from border to border. So,
So why is it okay?
It's a little crazy.
Well, why is it okay when Republicans do it? I just don't understand. It's crazy.
I've never understood it. It's a point of frustration for me, especially when we're down here in central and southern Illinois, where our media sources is varied. We don't have a radio station like yours down in central Illinois. We have, I think, what I referred to last time we talked, what we call insurrection radio, where all they do is a propaganda outlet for whatever's coming out of Washington, D.C.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, so it's hard to cut through that noise. It's hard to find ways to do that, but we have found the best ways is to talk to people directly. You can't rely on traditional media to do that work for you. We have to get out and into our communities and make sure people are aware of what's really happening.
Well, I appreciate that you shared this information and how tariffs are affecting your neck of the woods in McLean County. For folks who are listening in that area, maybe online, or you can catch us. Sometimes you can catch us that far away. But it's McLeanCountyDemocrats.org, and we've been talking to Patrick Cortese, who is the chair of the McLean County Dems. And I look forward to talking to you again. Please don't hesitate to reach out and let us know what you'd like to share with us.
Will do. Thanks for having me on again, and keep up the good work.
You too, my friend. Take care.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
We're going to talk more about other parts of Illinois. We're going to talk to Alderwoman Aida Baker, who's going to tell us about a protest going on in Sterling, Illinois. I'm going to get to the calls. I'm going to figure it out, I promise. But I got to get to my guests, too. More in a moment on WCPT 820, Heartland Signal.
You're listening to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez.
In your communities, in Chicago.
On WCPT.
And throughout the state, and then, of course, throughout the country. Joining us from Sterling, Illinois, the 4th Ward Alderwoman of Sterling, Illinois, is Aida Baker, who's a Chicago native and retired and moved to Sterling. First of all, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Patty. Thank you for having me on today.
And I already broke my own rule. I told myself I wouldn't ask people how they are. Are you hydrating is probably the better thing to ask. Are you staying hydrated?
I definitely am. I'm constantly hydrated.
Yeah. The weather, the stress, we all have to stay hydrated. So tell us, what made you decide to retire to Sterling, Illinois?
Oh, wow. And that's a question everybody asks me all the time.
It's a super cute area. Don't get me wrong. It's a super cute town and great properties. And so, I'm not surprised by it, but I want to know your story about it.
Well, basically, my husband retired and I retired and we wanted to downsize. We have 2 sons, wonderful sons that moved away. They didn't need to live with us anymore. The house became big. So we went from Chicago. We lived in DuPage County for a very long time, right out basically near the Morton Arboretum, and found this house in Sterling, the affordability aspect, the quiet, peaceful, rural part of Illinois. This part of Illinois is amazing. We get bald eagles, all kinds of wild bird life. It's amazing. And we have a huge river. It's called the Rock River, which is nobody ever talks about.
I love Sterling. I've done stand up there. I had a friend whose mother lived there. I passed through there when I've gone down. I think right on the way to Springfield. You guys are do you also?
No.
Well, why was I in Sterling? It's farther west, right?
Yes. So we're basically 110 miles west of Chicago.
That's right.
And then we're about a half an hour away from the Mississippi River. Directly down I-88, Interstate 88.
Nice. I highly recommend stopping in Sterling when you guys see it on your road signs. I'm just saying. So you become the alderwoman, and what made you pursue? I know that was this an appointment in the city hall?
Yes, it was. So a vacancy came on, and our mayor learned about me, and she knew that I would be probably a pretty good fit for this ward, and so she appointed me. I've been in the council since October. So I'm fairly new at it, but I'm learning a whole lot, and I really love what I'm doing here because there's a lot of work to be done in rural parts of America, Illinois. But we are trying our best to bring people here. So our city is growing, and it's becoming very cool. And you can see the architecture here is outstanding. I mean, houses from the late 1800s, early 1900s, and it's just amazing, and it's peaceful, and it's safe, and it's a lovely place. I recommend people stop by. I agree. I've been to some great restaurants there. I love sort of the town square area, if I'm recalling correctly, right? Yeah. Super cute. And it's actually, we have a huge riverfront project that's starting, and it's going to be amazing. Give us a couple of years, and I think it's going to be completely small town charm. Fantastic. Now, my question is, because you sent a notice about a protest for tomorrow, Musk and Trump's illegal actions. So what is the Democratic Party like in Sterling, Illinois? We are strong. Yay! We are strong. We are vibrant. We work very hard, and we love each other. So we try to do right by our citizens, by our neighbors here. We want fairness and equality and transparency, all kinds of wonderful things for our people. And what's going on right now with Trump and Musk and in Washington, D.C. is so scary. Yeah. And we are we're a grassroots group, we feel, but I see that all over the country we're not alone. I mean, people are starting to come out against these two. Well, that's kind of my question is, are you hearing from folks who are surprised that this is, maybe they voted for Trump and they didn't think it was going to turn out this way and starting to realize what's happening? Yes. Matter of fact, I was at my local small grocery store in town yesterday. The woman working there, I thought she was part of my party. Turned out she voted for Trump, and immediately she started telling me how remorseful she was because her son lost his job, got the notice on Friday. Her daughter-in-law is soon to lose her job, and she works in Africa right now. But they're going to have to come home, and they just bought a house, and now they don't know what to do. And she said, I voted for Trump. Wow. And I just looked at her, and I said, I'm really sorry what's happening, but sadly, this is going to happen more and more and more. So, I'm so glad that you brought it to our attention. So, tell folks about this protest tomorrow. Okay, so our protest is in our downtown square, 4:00 p.m. Tuesday. It's called the Grandon. It's a Grandon, and it's our band shell, basically. We're expecting people of all age groups. We are making our own signs. It's going to be a peaceful protest. We're hoping that's the way it should be. But we just so we're expecting a whole big group. We're hoping to get more people out there than we even expect. Yeah. To make a statement. I mean, we can't sit back and just let things happen to our country. Our democracy is so important to all of us. Man, I'm so glad to hear that folks in Sterling, Illinois are getting organized. And I want to stay in touch with you and have more conversations about what's going on in your community and find out how we can help going forward, okay? I would love that very much, Patty, and I appreciate WCPT and the listeners, and I want to thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts for giving me the time here. Oh, yeah, we'll continue to do so. Again, it's tomorrow at 4 p.m. at the Grandon Civic Center at the community's band shell, essentially, and that's in Sterling, Illinois at 4 p.m., folks. Show up. Bring your signs, bring your voice, bring your patriotism across from the Sterling Post Office. I just read your little poster. Thank you so much, my friend. Good to meet you. I'll talk to you again soon. Thank you. Absolutely. Okay, bye-bye, everybody. Bye, Patty. Bye. And to piggyback off that, Myrna, I wanted to make sure I got to your conversation about boycotting and shopping. What do you want to tell us?
In January, there was day without Mexicans, where a lot of businesses, mom-and-pop-owned businesses, they closed for the day. They paid all of their employees for the day. They lost a lot of revenue for being closed, but it was in support of all of the people who were being taken by ICE. So as an alternative to boycotting Target, my suggestion is Google your neighborhood.
Yep.
Find out where there are Mexican restaurants, little supermarkets.
Yes.
As I've said before, ignorance or racism comes from ignorance.
Yeah.
And it's a way for you to learn about your surrounding neighborhoods that are Mexican, Puerto Rican, Honduran, whatever.
Yep.
Go there and shop. A lot of those supermarkets, they look like they're just, little places, but they stock a lot of products, the same kind of products you get at Target, at Walmart, at any big retailer. Go there on that day or on those days that, those retailers are being boycotted. Help out the people who are helping out those who are being affected by the rates.
Absolutely.
And you're keeping them in business. You're bringing revenue to the city still, and they're paying taxes because you're purchasing from them.
That's
Help
right.
them out the way that you will.
I love it. Si se puede. Thank you, Myrna. Yep, that's what I'm going to do.
Bye.
I'll count on it. All right, thank you, my friend. Let's take a break here. I'm going to try to get your calls before I talk to our guests who are coming in studio about, they have a film called Single Car Crashes. We're going to talk to them in just a little bit. I'll take your phone calls. And then, Paul, you can call back. I'll get your call. And I don't know who else is on hold. So we'll come back in a moment on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal.
Driving it home with Patti Vasquez, Patti Vasquez.
From global conflicts to greenhouse gases, the folks refusing to wear masks says, and politicians getting caught grabbing ass says, she's driving it home with Patti Vasquez.
Thank you so much for joining us as we continue our drive home. We want to say hello to our friends listening on KTNF AM 950 Minneapolis, St. Paul, as we broadcast here from WCPT 820 Heartland Signal out of Chicago. And of course, you can listen to the show anywhere that you listen to podcasts. TuneIn is actually the best place, or heartlandsignal.com. And if you miss any of our conversations, they're always available after the show on Spotify, Amazon, Apple, all those places. And some of our interviews are standalone. So if there's often highlighted interviews. And I'm going to ask if we can do, Paul, when we get this interview up and going, if we could do this as a standalone, I would appreciate that, if that's okay. Sound good? Thank you. Paul's the producer today who has been taking your phone calls, and I promised listeners that I would take their calls before I get to our wonderful guests in studio. I also want to thank our sponsor. We want to thank Source Solar. Go to source.solar for your solar needs. Over 100,000 happy customers. You want to join them. Find out if your house is ready for solar panels. Pete and Warren can help you out, and we'll be having conversations with them in the weeks to come to find out more about the work they do. We also want to thank Minocqua Brewing Company. I want you to go to MinocquaBrewingCompany.com and support the work that Kirk is doing. Look, he might be shooting from the hip. He might be a little erratic. Like me, he might lack impulse control. I'm just saying him more than me, I would say. But still, we're proud to have him as our sponsor because he's kept the lights on for us for years now. So go to MinocquaBrewingCompany.com. And Paul, I promise I invited you to call back, and there you are on the air before we get to our friends from the film Single Car Crashes. What's on your mind, my friend? I'm not going to ask how you're doing, but are you hydrating?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I am right now.
Excellent.
Yeah, hydrating. Yeah.
Excellent. What's on your mind? Huh?
Yeah. I don't know if IPA qualifies as hydration, but
as long as it's not a Molson Coors product, you're fine.
No. It would never. No.
Okay, good.
Well, by the way, I wanted to say first that I really liked your guest who was, you're talking about anxiety and, or worry, and set a timer. And I figured this out a while ago. This also applies to like beating yourself up, right? Although I must say I'm accused of being the worst beater up of myself ever. But it's kind of like I remember one time beating myself up over something stupid. I really did something stupid, and I the next morning I was so mad at myself, and I said, well, am I ever going to forgive myself for this? And I thought, yeah, probably like when, a week? No, maybe not a week. And I thought, well, if you're ever going to forgive yourself, how about now? Just do it now, right? Just get through it. And so if you have to set a timer about how long you're going to worry, and I'm one of the worst worriers, then how about you say, let's set the timer for 1 minute, right? And then That's just stopping us.
Well, it's also being mindful of the anxiety, not like, being aware that it's happening so that way you can't control it all the time, but
no, you're telling me.
At least put a leash on it or something.
Yeah, I know all about anxiety. It's one of my big problems. But so you're talking about, these are the kind of things I think about. Is you're talking about when Trump has said this outrageous thing that the Ukraine started the war, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then turn this around and say, and I called one of the right-wing radio stations here in Seattle. I said, and this is the question: who started the war in Ukraine?
Yeah.
Ukraine? I mean, it's like, wait a minute.
They invaded themselves. Didn't you know that?
Yeah. They said to Russia, why don't you come on over and have a fight in our house, right? And let's destroy our house. It's just like, it makes no sense. There isn't. And then I thought, well, okay, it makes no sense. It's kind of like the gold question, who's buried in Grant's tomb? Grant. It's like,
it's crazy.
The obvious question is, no, Ukraine did not. And then here it is on the, third anniversary, that obviously Ukraine did not start. And all you have to think about is who started the war? Who started the war in Ukraine? Well, if it's in Ukraine, it wasn't Ukraine.
Yeah.
But then you could look at this and say, well, I thought, I know what somebody's going to say. Well, who started the war in Gaza, if you're going to use that logic?
Oh, God.
Well, yeah, Hamas started a conflict. But that was 17 months ago. They attacked on Monday, on October 7th, 2023. But there isn't a war in Gaza. It's essentially Israel destroying Gaza. There's no fighting. There's no fighting going on as if they won. There's no fighting going on. In other words, in Ukraine, there's a war where there are Ukrainian forces versus Russian forces.
Right.
But that's not the case in what's going on.
It's a different. Yeah, I mean, it's a different conversation altogether. I agree. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Well, what I'm saying is that when you look at it, Gaza is the size of Detroit. It's not even as big as Chicago.
Right.
And there's 17 months worth of,
and again,
essentially, the communities of hundreds of thousands of people have been destroyed. It's not the same comparison.
It's a different dynamic. I mean, there's a lot of, I mean, there's so many crazy layers to it. And but again, we are forced in these conversations because they both conflate and somehow minimize the atrocities and yet inflate them somewhere else. So I've got to run to some other conversations too, Paul. Okay. Appreciate your time. Thank you for calling back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Steve is calling from Glenview. Your calls are being taken in the order they were received. How can I help you, Steve?
Oh, Patty, I got to tell you, I'm so proud of my wife. Let me start by saying I am not I would say I'm not a progressive or a liberal by nature. I'm sort of more of I'm considered a Republican, but she's a regular listener to you guys, and I think she heard from maybe it was Malcolm Nance the other day about two different things that are coming up, shutdown 315 and the February 28th economic blackouts. And she took it on herself to go out, write up a flyer herself, edited it all weekend, got a bunch of them printed up this morning, and went out around the neighborhood putting them on people's doorknobs.
Oh.
She's 79 years old, and I'm so proud of her.
What? I love her, too. What's her name?
I'm not sure she wants me to say her.
That's all right. Then you call back when you want to say her if she wants you to. But thank her as well. And I love that. I wish you could send us like a graphic. Well, at any rate, thank her and thank you for being so proud of her.
I'll give you the flyer so you can see what it is.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much, Steve, and have a good evening. And give her a big hug for us. Hug and a kiss. All right.
Will do.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you. And Ron in Hamilton, California. Hey, Ron, what's on your mind?
Well, it's come to be. Hamilton Field is a former military base, Air Force, Army, Navy, and Coast Guard. And it still has offices. But 35 years ago, they had cleanup or cover-up contracts, government contracts. So my question is this, and I think it's kind of self-evident, but when you're talking about Musk and the president and firing people from all these agencies, all that talent just sweeping out, and some people may be getting back and some not. What happens when Mr. Government Contract Musk gets contracts in the future to get those same people back and charge the government for the fees that the government would have already had in place that makes a multiple of profits from the government contracts in relationship to that. Yeah. He steals the thing, and then he goes back and cares for them. It's unbelievable.
I'm with you.
This is not out there yet. Yeah. Can we get it? People can be sanctioned and not given government contracts for kinds of disruption and not quite following the rules. Where is he? He steals and then brings back, and he gets a revolving door and dollars all the way around.
He bought the White House with over like $250 million, and he's going to get his, he's going to get a big bang for his buck because it's already happening. But I'm with you, and this is going to end up costing us more all around, whether it's human lives, suffering, and of course our future financial stability on the backs of working families.
It's too bad we couldn't hold back the dollars we have to pay in income tax and other taxes so that we could balance out somewhere with all that we've been given the government to have someone like Musk out there to tear the system apart and then put the people on the street, basically, and then down the line with government contracts to have to fill the holes that he created, he will be paid with the government contracts hiring the same people at different rates without security, just per job.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
It really is. I'm so glad you got the vent, and I'm glad you called us to do it, Ron. You take care of yourself, okay? Stay hydrated. Thank you.
I'm always hydrated.
Excellent. And one more. We've got Gregory in Hyde Park, my friend. What's going on?
Hi, Ms. Vasquez. The narrative is more complicated, and since we live in a headline culture and that's controlled by the corporate media, we don't understand the background to what happened in Ukraine, and people have a groupthink and want to ally against the big bad enemy. But it's a little more complicated than Russia just invaded Ukraine. Well, what happened was that when they voted to join the European Union, the Russian-leaning president didn't go by the wishes of the referendum, if you will. And so they ran him out of the country in the Maidan Revolution, which went on for 5 months. And then according to a British NATO intelligence officer that I spoke with, among other reports at the time, 10 years ago, the Ukrainians did actually, apparently, it's hard to believe, but this is what the other sources will tell you, that not mainstream media sources, but the Ukrainians started the shelling, killing up to 7,000 people. And then the NATO Swiss French speaking intelligence officer for NATO, Amy Goodman's show, Democracy Now!, reported that they had amassed an army to go and put down the autonomy movement in the Donbass, which is a 1,000-year-old Russian-speaking region. The Ukrainians wouldn't let them speak Russian in school or in government, so they just wanted to break off, and Russia wanted to have a buffer against NATO and American nuclear missiles eventually, if possible. So they were going to go in and put down the autonomy movement, and so Putin's hand was forced to come in, but he went overboard trying to take Kyiv and the entire country, and it made a big, fat mess out of everything.
It sounds like
now.
Okay.
What?
I just don't feel like you're letting me have a conversation with you. I know it seems as though you want to get sort of deep into Ukraine, Russia, and the origins of this. I don't have quite the bandwidth nor enough information at my fingertips to kind of get a handle on some of the things that you're referencing. I know that you mentioned Democracy Now! And some other elements, but also someone you spoke to. It's a lot, and I'm not quite ready to delve into it. So I want to thank you so much for calling.
Can I ask you one question?
Sure.
Joan Esposito reported that there was polling showing that a lot of young people did not come out for Kamala Harris.
Right.
And Governor Walz because of the mismanagement, if you will, or the way they handled the war in Gaza. They didn't rein in Netanyahu, and they mismanaged that. And I've been meaning to ask her, and you now, is there polling that shows us, depending on whatever narrative a person might have, is there polling that shows that they lost a lot of votes, any significant number of votes, because people did not like the way they mismanaged the war in Ukraine?
I think that because I have guests in the studio, I will address that one. Well, first of all, I don't follow any polling. Whenever I see something, I'll follow the link and be like, okay, what's this story about? Whether it's about the present administration or Zelensky or anybody else. As far as like if it's coming up in the numbers about the way it was handled, I mean, it seems to me what I understand is that most Republicans don't want us to be involved. Apparently, they want Russia to run ramshot over Ukraine, and that's very strange that we are now in this situation where we are aligned with Putin as far as our administration. So I'd love to have this conversation with you down the road because I feel, I'm going to take a quick break, just a little bit of this, because I have guests in the studio that I had booked for 6 o'clock. I wanted to make sure we got to our call, so I want to thank them for their patience. And just a quick just a reset right here. Thank you, Gregory. I'll talk to you again soon. I just have to go. I just need to make sure we get our station ID. And so I want to welcome thank you, Gregory, for calling, and everybody else who was calling. But I also wanted to change gears because one of the things that I love in the last 12 years or so, I was supposed to move to Los Angeles. And for various family reasons, I decided I would stay in Chicago and do everything I could to build a career here. And I want to personally thank our filmmaker who's joining us in studio because she single-handedly is the reason that I've had a few roles on Chicago Fire. And now I did a scene on Chicago PD, so I'm very excited about that. So Brittany Ward joins us in studio, and I ran into you, Brittany, filmmaker. Now, I didn't know were you filmmaking when I ran into you at Joe's like 15 years ago?
I believe I was writing an early draft of this same movie on
really?
receipt paper while you were a star of the Mikey O comedy show, and I thought I must know that person.
Oh, well, you came up to me. We were talking. You said you were at I think P&R Casting, one of the casting agencies.
I started my career as an intern at Pascal Rudnicki Casting here in Chicago when I was straight out of school, straight out of DePaul University.
So I was ready to give up auditioning because I'm a stand-up comic, and one of the agents I had spoken that I had from Ford, they were doing commercial and film and stuff back in the early 2000s. My agent said, "You're adorable. If you just lost like 35 pounds, I could get you more work." And I'm like, I didn't get into stand-up comedy to do that. So when I got with Stewart, like they loved that I do stand-up. But I went on so many auditions, and I was just like, I can't. I just like it's a haul. It's a lot. I mean, it was hundreds of auditions, and you were so kind to me. You're like, you told me you auditioned great. It's often just it comes down to the look that the casting director or the client wants, and so you single-handedly got me staying on that path of just keep showing up. And that's really what it takes in acting. I mean, you have to be ready for that, right?
Yeah, certainly. And in filmmaking, too. And I'm fortunate that casting career segued into a very actor-friendly directorial process, a lot of collaboration with a few of the other actors that we have here today.
Is that true?
Does
she collaborate? I'm kidding. Yes. But yes, go ahead. Sorry.
That's it. That's it. I mean, I think... Yeah, it's a long haul to be in entertainment. It can be a lonely pursuit, even though it is a pursuit that people think of as all very glamorous and you're at these very fancy parties. And a lot of times that's true. It is a fun lifestyle when it's going well. And it's also a grind. You also have to be really persistent about your art. I think a lot of us are feeling just the nature of being human beings in this very oversaturated world, whether it's with the headlines and the politics happening right now on social media, in our pursuit of our passions and our day jobs. How can we keep on keeping on to create something that brings meaning to our lives and can impact others?
And good for you really, again, it's not easy to stick it out and to have that idea that you write down on receipts. I mean, how crazy was it for you to bring this to life?
It was the most surreal. It was so crazy. On the second day of filming, I remember very distinctly is when it kind of all caught up to me, and I just had to go outside and nobody could find me, and Trevor knew where to find me, the lead actor of this movie, one of my best friends, and he found me, and I was just sobbing, just tears pouring down my face because I had loved this thing for so long. It's a lot like motherhood. I know that you're a mother, and I had become a mother in pandemic myself, so I had the experience of wanting a baby girl for a long time and then bringing her into the world, and people are helping you navigate that. And that's what my first time directing felt like to me. It felt like, are you going to help me take care of this baby? Are you going to help me take care of this baby? I don't know how to make this baby on my own. And sure enough, people said yes, 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 until we were making it, until we were editing it, until we were releasing it to today.
And here we are. So it's Brittany Ward. She's a filmmaker, director, producer for the film Single Car Crashes, which is about, is it an Illinois town, but filmed primarily in Chicago?
Great question. It's initially inspired by my life in McHenry County, which is a pretty rural suburb equidistant between Chicago and Milwaukee. And we shot this film in Highwood, Illinois, which is a little
I love
village.
Highwood.
Yeah,
it's in Highwood. It's telling me that.
Yeah, it's adjacent to Highland Park. It's a blast. It's a day drinker's town. It's a movie for day drinkers.
Jen Zanotti, who was on at 5:15, she's a native of Highwood. She grew up there.
Oh, we have to tell her. She'll have to see it. She'll recognize every single location.
Yeah, absolutely.
I thought you were going to say she's a day drinker. That was the connection.
I don't talk out of class. I don't. That's for her to share, not me. I mean, I do. But that's the voice of Trevor Morgan, who is an actor, writer, and director whose career spanned over 30 years in the film industry. And we also and next to him, if you're watching on our live stream, Paula Olszynski.
Yeah, very good. Olszynski.
I was so close.
You're so close. It was good.
Olszynski.
Yeah, it's hard.
Excellent.
It's hard.
First generation. I love that. It's so funny because being first generation in your family, Polish American, and I don't know how familiar you are with this neighborhood, but
I'm very familiar.
Did you stop over at Andy's Deli? Because if you don't speak Polish, you are out of luck.
I actually had my wedding reception at Gala Banquets.
So did I.
Because they married each other.
Yeah. Wait a minute, you're married to each other? Wait, so where's Gala? Milwaukee?
It's literally like half a block from here on Milwaukee.
Oh, how fun.
Yeah, it's a Polish venue too, yeah.
It's the one with the gray front, like it's got kind of a darker front to it.
I think so.
And they show the parking lot with the Fifth Third Bank.
Yes, that's what that was on the invitation to the wedding. P.S. Free parking at Fifth Third Bank.
That's so, because we take my son on tricycle rides, cycling for his therapy. He does tricycle rides, so we always will see like weddings and stuff, and I love seeing people like celebrating. How would you recommend that? Well, you know what? You have to tell me on the air.
Marriage?
Yeah, the Gala banquet hall.
Oh yeah, it was wonderful.
Bring your microphone a little bit closer to you if you swing that.
Sorry.
You can swing. That's all right. I just want to make sure I catch all your voices. So Gala was a good place to have your reception.
They were wonderful. Super easy to work with. The food was incredible. Loads of food.
I love that you got married right down the block
shelf
from
liquor.
I was there as well. There was a fair amount of limoncello, and I was an unofficial groomsman.
Nice.
So I started the party with them at 11 a.m. and wrapped up that wedding at about 2 a.m.
2 a.m.
Yeah.
Where did you have the ceremony?
At Gala. Oh, no, the ceremony.
That's impressive. Hey.
No, the ceremony, we got married at St. Hyacinth Basilica.
Oh, nice. That's beautiful.
It was gorgeous.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So how long have you all known each other then, Brittany? So you said you were friends with Trevor for quite a bit?
We've known each other since 2012.
Okay.
That's insane. Yeah.
Yeah. 13 years.
Which is roughly
longer because I feel like, because him and I have been together for almost 12 years. And you knew him way before.
Not way before.
No?
Not way before, but 2011, 2012, right? So if I was in Los Angeles working as a casting associate, I first met Trevor when he came in to audition.
Okay.
And thought, who is that? And also I recognize him from us being the same age, and so I've been come up seeing him in various movies and TV throughout the years. But then to meet him in person and see what a talented actor he was, my casting bosses at the time, Amber Horn and Daniela Fierro, knew that Trevor, in addition to being an amazing actor, is also an exceptional filmmaker himself. And he was looking for somebody to hire some actors for a project he was shooting in Chicago. So then I flew back home to Chicago to help with that project. And that's when we became very close friends. At the same time, these two were starting to date. So it was quickly after that I met Paulina. Yeah.
So Trevor, did you go from Chicago to LA? Are you from Chicago originally?
Yeah, I'm originally from Chicago area. Basically, my grandparents bought one of the first houses in Streamwood forever ago, so all around that Schaumburg area is where I kind of grew up. But I spent quite a bit of time in Los Angeles, so I feel like I've spent probably about half and half my entire life.
When did you move to LA?
My parents moved out when I was about 10 for different reasons. And
not to get you in the film industry. Get out there, kid. Make us some money.
It just sort of worked out. Okay. But we would always come back for Christmas and summer. And then they moved back. I'm trying to think of when that was. Over a decade, 2 decades maybe. And I stayed in LA, but then I would spend a lot of time out here, and then we moved back officially in 2017.
To Chicago.
Yeah. Well, we lived in Elgin for a while.
Yeah, for about 6 years.
And Paulina, where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Harwood Heights.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I went
right here.
Yeah, right here.
All right.
Yeah. Went to Union Ridge, went to Ridgewood High School.
I have friends that went to. I grew up in Norwood Park.
Okay.
So I'm right down the street from where I grew up. Yeah. So super dogs in my DNA. Yeah. I'm trying to think. Like, a lot of this. I'm older, so I'm like trying to think of the things in Harwood because I'm sure people told you there used to be a roller rink.
Elliott's.
Oh, Elliott's. Yeah. Yeah,
their beef sandwich. Oh,
and
so
there used to be a cookie place on Harlem Avenue too that you would smell like for miles
away.
Yeah, it's the
most incredible
like
smell.
sugar cookies.
Yes,
all the time.
Yeah,
it's fantastic. So when did you get started in acting? Were you drawn to the theater or?
It took me by surprise. I wanted to be a pediatrician. I wanted to go to med school.
Okay.
And work with kids and be a pediatrician. It kind of came out of nowhere. I was forced into doing part of a language arts class in like the 5th grade. We had to pick like a scene or a monologue or a poem or something, and for a grade, and ended up doing a scene with like 2 of my friends called Bubbles Goes to School. And then there was this West 40 Speech and Drama Festival that the teacher would be in charge of and a part of, and she's like, hey, you guys are doing a great job. You want to go to this festival and like try and win an award for our school? And I was like, okay, sure. Performed for the first time in front of everyone, and it scared the crap out of me. But I fell in love with it, and then kind of told my parents this is what I want to do. And
how'd they react to that?
Ooh, terrified.
Yeah. Especially when your kid tells you they want to be a doctor. Like, that's exciting.
Yeah,
like,
and being first generation, to like go to school, become a doctor, a lawyer,
Yeah, same. First generation Mexican, Mexican American,
But then they jumped on board and believed in me, and
good,
championed,
same, by the way.
And so
it makes a difference.
Right? It really does.
And now, Trevor, did your interest in acting start because you were kind of surrounded by the industry in LA, or when did you get bitten?
So I got involved because I was a pretty precocious child. And I was running around in Woodfield Mall, and I was doing a Beetlejuice impersonation, and a local casting director by the name of Sherry Mann saw me and told my mom to take me to a commercial casting audition the next day, and my mom was a little bit put off, man, like, this is a little weird, but she took me anyway. And I got it. It was a Mrs. Dash commercial, and that's how it started.
Holy cats! Did you like it right out of the gate, or was it something you're like, okay, I guess I'm doing this?
I loved it.
Oh, good.
But I think I also loved I love spending time in my own imagination, and I also love talking to people. So, I was really good with adults, I guess, and I just really enjoyed it.
Excellent. And now, Brittany, our filmmaker, director, writer, when did you get drawn to wanting to tell stories?
I wanted to be a writer my whole life, for as long as I can remember. I wrote the Tooth Fairy Tales in kindergarten and won an award at the full K through 8 school or whatever it was. In grade school, I would write these plays and make all the students spend their recesses rehearsing it for a show that was never going to come. Just make them do it as an activity. So when I was in about 7th grade is when I had professors, or teachers, I guess not professors at the time, say, here's this screenwriting book. You want to be a screenwriter? Okay, great. And then it just added to my belief. Actually, that same teacher that I'm thinking of, John Riley, recently messaged me, and I owe him a message back because he watched Single Car Crashes from his home in Florida, and I'm looking forward to hearing what he thinks about it. So that level of belief from mentors, not just John, that teacher, but my parents especially, first and foremost, my parents, my grandparents, other teachers that I had, that allowed me to then go to the University of Iowa for a couple of years, and then DePaul here in Chicago. DePaul's digital cinema program is absolutely incredible, and I was one of the first graduates of it.
Whoa.
And studied screenwriting there. But during college, that love for writing combined with a bit of a background in extracurricular acting. I used to just be in the musicals or sing the national anthem. I never intended to pursue acting professionally. That combination then segued me into casting for the first third of my career. But my passion has and always was in writing and wanting to direct. And then once you take that detour into something that's similar, even if it's pretty close, it's hard to find your way back.
I would imagine.
Yeah.
I love that. So we've got to know a little bit about the director, writer, producer of Single Car Crashes, as well as the actors in the film, it is now available for rent or purchase on all your digital HD platforms. Right?
Yeah.
It's been available since February 7th. Again, congratulations on that. So we'll talk about the film Single Car Crashes when we come back with Trevor, with Paulina, and with Brittany when we come back on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal and KTNF AM 950 Minneapolis, St. Paul.
If you're listening to this station right now, you've definitely heard my voice before. Hi, I'm Hawk.
And I'm Pete. And we're with Source Solar, your local source for solar. Source Solar is Chicagoland's premier solar installer, providing solutions for over 1,000 homeowners and business owners across Illinois and Iowa.
With over a decade of industry experience and deep roots here in Chicago, we have the expertise to help your transition to clean, renewable, resilient energy.
We can guarantee that we save you money day one without any out-of-pocket cost to you. This means you have an instant ROI, instant payback, and can save money to add to your bottom line day one.
At Source Solar, we source everything as local as possible, meaning we always carry the Made in USA sticker.
Find us online at www.source.solar. Stop in our office at 5710 North Northwest Highway or give us a call at 773-985-3992.
And don't forget to ask for Hawk
or Pete.
You're listening to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez.
In your communities, in Chicago.
On WCPT 820.
Thank you so much for joining us as we continue to drive it home. I was just gushing about actor, director Paul McCrane because my guests in studio are familiar. At least Brittany Ward is familiar with his work. I told a story about being on the set. And real quick.
No,
because you guys are Trevor and Paulina. I don't know if you're old enough to remember his role on ER as Dr. Robert Romano. So I was standing there with LaRoyce Hawkins, who plays a cop on Chicago PD. And by the way, we're with the actors and the writer-producer of the film Single Car Crashes. And so I turned to LaRoyce Hawkins, who I was doing the scene with, and I go, I can't see him without a helicopter landing on him. And he goes, what? And so he pulls up the video. There's like a montage of Paul McCrane being attacked by helicopters repeatedly because he was. He had like his arm cut off on ER, and then it ultimately killed him. Spoiler alert. But
that's right. That's his gruesome end.
Yes, and all these kids. So all like LaRoyce is like, and then he's showing it to the other actors. They had no idea. So they're like, well, who did he tick off? The writers or the audience or both? And so it was really fun to share that element of this regular director on Chicago PD. And so, but you expressed some admiration for him. And so tell me a little bit about what it's like working with friends and bringing this dream of yours to the screen and like going through that process.
Yeah, thank you. Well, first of all, I have to say, yes, +1 to the praise to Paul McCrane, and also shout out to LaRoyce Hawkins, who both of those people that you just described and the people that are sitting next to me right now are just such authentic people.
Yes.
First.
Uh-huh.
Right? I mean, that's really where I think a lot of my collaboration starts, is to really be able to know somebody and know them for real, right? So that you can then create a character, build a world together. And we all have a lot in common. Even though we didn't know each other before moving in LA, we all have these Midwestern roots. I think it's a fun thing that Trevor and I are best friends, that Paulina and I are best friends, because we didn't meet in the suburbs here. We met in Los Angeles.
How wild is that?
So many miles away, became so close, only to come back and realize how much we had in common, right? So just the openness to connect with people in that regard, to find chemistry in your personal and professional collaborations is a real gift, I think, in this lifetime. And I appreciate it about myself, that I have a real openness and a real intuition about people that was then further honed from years and years and years of casting. My extroversion specifically was honed by that. Checking my instincts against, okay, is this the person the right fit for the role? Is this a person that's going to call me back? Is this a person that's going to show up to set on time? Right. And then you develop that intuition over time into more of an actionable skill, which is what I had coming into the casting process of Single Car Crashes. But before I was even casting it, per se, I was really building it with these two. Trevor read an early draft of the script because I respected his work so much as an actor, as a writer, as a filmmaker. So one of these earliest drafts, 2012, 2013, whenever it was, that he read. And it's one of the things that bonded us, because it's a script that's so heartfelt about interpersonal human connection, which we are both very passionate about in real life. And so from there, we would keep in touch about it over the next few years. And then when I had another draft ready to go, Paulina and Trevor generously, and somebody else that's very dear to us all, an actor named Joey Morgan, and a few other actors all came together and did this celebratory table read and built these characters. And then another year went by and I didn't have the money yet, and they did another table read for me, and then another table read for me.
Wow.
And so a lot of the things that are in this movie are from those actors' mouths, even little improvisations that happened at the table reads. Paulina was supposed to play a different character, and she read that character in every single one of the reads, and then we thought, well, we need to give you the biggest role that we can find for you in this instead, because you're too good. But then those little Paulina-isms stayed in that character and informed the casting of it. So
what a fun collaboration.
It's a journey, really, together.
Well, Trevor, tell us about your character, Sean, and the story that you guys have apparently so joyously brought to us.
Sure. Sean is crippled by regret and grief. And to me, the thing that drew me to the script was, in my opinion, it always spoke to me as, two different ways of handling grief. Mm-hmm. One is with grace and one is much harder and self-harm in a way, mm-hmm.
by
just beating yourself up. And it's funny because when she finally made the film, it finally came back around after years. It hit me at a time when I was very connected to Sean because I was experiencing my own grief. Mm-hmm. It felt almost manipulative that she asked me to do it. It's about a guy who drinks too much and can't get over the death of his best friend. It was okay, all right. But it was perfect timing because
okay. All right. You do what you have to do to get the movie made.
Hey, it was a smart move. I'm not gonna lie.
Holy cats! All right.
And it was kind of perfect for me because it helped me with my own grief journey. But to go back to your more direct question is who is Sean and what the movie is about is Sean is a person who can't forgive himself for his past and blames himself for his best friend's death.
Okay.
And lives in that shadow of himself and hasn't grown up.
Wow. And so Paulina, we've been talking about this film. And so again, it's Single Car Crash is available for rent or purchase wherever you stream.
Yeah, anything VOD in North America and Canada. So driving people to Amazon Prime, to Apple TV, anywhere like that you can rent or own.
And they film right near some of the greatest restaurants in the Chicagoland area, by the way. In Highwood. So, Paulina, tell us a little bit about your the way you've seen this film sort of evolve and then helping bring it to life as well.
Yeah, so as Brittany said, I was a part of table reads. Was originally cast to play Emily, and I always secretly was hoping and praying that I would get to play Jane. And hilariously, and very grateful for it, I did get the opportunity to play Jane. She was one of my favorite characters in the script. And basically Jane is, I guess you would say, childhood best friends with Sean and Kendall, who ends up coming back to town and getting married, and was also a childhood friend of Zachary, who ended up passing away early on in high school. And I actually, how would you say it? She gets together with Sean's character and
baby mama.
Yeah, the baby mama. We have a baby together. And it's kind of, just the journey and kind of staying by, she's been sticking by Sean's side throughout all of it and watching him kind of, go down this dark path and trying to figure life out and, championing him and rooting for him and wanting the best for him and their son. And yeah.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited that you brought this story to life and that you also got distribution because, having had experience in Los Angeles, that whole push for years has been, what do they call it? The big tent, right? You want the big tent movies, old and young, men and women, which is how we ended up with so many comic book movies. And we don't have as many elevated stories like this as we used to, when I was growing up in the 80s and 90s. It was a lot of that,
Yeah, stylistically, in terms of inspiration and comps, it's very late 90s, early 2000s in filmmaking approach.
Right.
That was a time when independent film was so celebrated and did have this very prestigious moment. I believe and hope that is coming back today. But what I'm proud of about the movie is that nostalgic relatability. I think it gives people a lot of relief. There's certainly an element to the Sean character, to the tone of the movie, that reflects what I think we're all feeling culturally post-pandemic, post-union strikes for us in the entertainment industry, talking about, hearing from your listeners today about the war in Ukraine, the war in Gaza. I think Paul from Seattle was talking about, like Trevor was saying in the character, beating himself up, right? So I think that we can all relate to those feelings of languishing. And what this movie does is it offers a nostalgic, cathartic release that just says, yeah, we're all people living here together. And as long as we're alive, we can make changes in how we spend our time and who we love and how we love to become better. And it's an exploration of using friendship as the vehicle to achieve that.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think that when you mention catharsis, I think that we're missing a lot of that, and especially the way we consume art now, right? Which, I mean, like, so this is streaming, so folks can be watching in the comfort of their home.
Yeah.
When you're watching, like, some of these shows and you're binge watching, you know, hour-long shows, and like, one of the things that that jumped out at me during the strike, I was a strike captain here in Chicago for SAG-AFTRA, and one of the conversations that I had with some folks and that I was reading about too is that, like, we used to sit with stories, right? Like, this is a story that you can sit with. Like, when we would watch a TV show, you'd have to wait till the next week to find out what the next thing was, right? You'd sit with the story. But, like, it's how do you even remember what happened 8 hours ago when you've just been watching it stream? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I get the desire for instant gratification, but taking time with a story like this, I think, is so important.
Yeah, it does. It builds up. The tension catches you by surprise because it's a pretty straightforward narrative that's told in really interesting ways throughout because of the expert actors that we have and their interesting dynamics and the way that we cast it, where it's just a certain character does not look the way you thought it was going to look in terms of casting decision, or what happens at the wedding is probably not what you're predicting is going to happen at the wedding. Even the relationship between these two characters where they have a kid together, you know, narrative storytelling would suggest that you want these two to end up together, but it's just a more complex and interesting relationship than that, through which Paulina's character Jane finds a lot of strength and autonomy herself. So I like what a thinking, relatable piece it is, and it's also, even though it has, like, you can sit with it and it does have a lot of these complex themes, it's also really funny. Like, laugh out loud, pee your pants, raucous funny because of Trevor's inherent comedy in particular, and that's why he was always the best person for this role, because there's a loving Midwestern charismatic charm that you almost can't find in most actors this intelligent and this strong. So yeah, it's fun too.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
What was, like, do you have, because one of the things I find with actors and directors, they don't always know some of the things that happen along the way that you didn't really talk about. What's something that, like, kind of jumps out for you, Paulina, when it came to filming? What surprised you the most in filming this? Would you?
Oh gosh,
this question's very surprising.
What did I not?
What did you expect? Like, what surprised you when bringing this voice to the screen? I know. Or, like, any little weird thing. Like, believe me, because, like, sometimes we forget those moments. And it's been a while since you filmed this, so it's not fair for me to ask
Trevor,
that.
Do you have anything? And I'll go
that
after
surprised you?
There was one, for me or something for you?
I don't know.
Because I can think of something that caught you by surprise.
Oh.
Am I thinking about the same thing?
The couch scene?
Yeah, the couch scene.
Yeah.
Caught you by surprise?
Yeah. So, going back to... Sorry, what Trevor was saying about how we both lost someone that was very close to us. And it was a scene between mine and Trevor's character, Jane and Sean, where our child came to us and... what was it? Sorry, help me out here. I have pregnant brain.
The setup for the scene is that the young son says, was I an accident? Why didn't you just have an abortion?
Okay.
And it's the two parents reckoning with that after. And it's an apolitical answer, although I myself am extremely pro women's reproductive rights. But we didn't dive into that in this movie. It was just the truth about these characters, and that truth was a line that Paulina had.
Yeah. That I struggled with, and I could not get through that scene for the life of me, and I had to take a couple moments, and Brittany walked upstairs with me and kind of talked me through it and kind of calmed me down, and I had to recenter myself, and it was I forget the line now that I'm on the spot.
She's looking at Trevor, who's her partner in real life.
Right.
And she's also
I wanted to keep you forever.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Whoa.
And I was thinking of one, our best friend.
What a great line.
That passed away, and I could not get through it. I could not get through it because I just
now I'm making you relive it. What a horrible interviewer I am.
Oh, it's great.
No, it's beautiful. It's great.
It was just what the movie was about, right? Like that moment, that like bonding together to get through it moment is the theme of the film.
Yeah.
I should have made Trevor go first.
No, I'm glad.
I have one that involves both of you.
Oh.
That was Billy Deck, local entrepreneur here and nationwide.
Yeah.
We did a rehearsal, the two of them, with Billy Deck in the scene that's halfway. And in the initial script, like, he's supposed to just get out and leave, like, halfway through while they're mid-fight. And instead, we explored with what about if he stays? And then it was like, well, what if they're not making out? What if something else, like his shirt is off? So all of a sudden, like, Billy Deck's shirt is off, and he's got to borrow Paulina's shirt, and then Trevor steals his shirt and throws it outside, and there's like a lot happening from an improv-based way that just took this scene that was meant to be a little bit charged and instead just made it wild and almost circus-like in its appeal, and it's my favorite scene in the movie. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a fun one.
There you go.
How we found that. Yeah.
And Trevor, how about yourself? How about your...
I mean, you kind of stole what I was thinking. Just of how fun that was.
Yeah, it was a good one.
I mean, there was a lot of different things that were surprising about, the film itself, or different challenges that we had. But I think every day and the work that I was trying to put in under the guise of not only do I want to do a great job, but I also have, the stakes of wanting to do a great job for one of my best friends and know how much time and effort she's put into it. But then the weight of everything I was dealing with grief-wise to then be reflected something to learn about myself was the coolest part of the experience, which is why I'll always be grateful for it.
That's amazing. Again, I mean, like, this film is just it's just imbued with so much richness, right? Whether it's the writing, the directing, the relationship you all have both on screen and off screen, and also I love anything that's filmed in the Chicagoland area and supports both not just the economy but elevates who we are as a community. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that you've done that. So let me take a break here and we'll continue our conversation with our friends, Paulina, Trevor, and Brittany from we're talking about the film Single Car Crashes, and it's available to stream, rent, or purchase wherever you enjoy that entertainment on HD platforms. More in a moment on WCPT 820, Heartland Signal. Also, that's internet, cable, and satellite. Just want to make sure I get all that right. Hi, this is Patti Vasquez. We appreciate all our fans of Driving It Home, and your support of show sponsor Monaco Brewing Company ensures that our important conversations continue right here on WCPT each weekday from 5 to 7 p.m. You can now find the Resistance IPA, Labor Lager, or the Resistance Pilsner beer at several Illinois locations, including Arminetti Wine and Spirits in Woodstock, Pineapple and Company in North Riverside, Lions Beverage Depot in Arlington Heights, and MP's Liquor, Wine, and Beer in North Aurora. For a full list of Chicagoland locations, please visit MonacoBrewingCompany.com. As always, please vote and drink responsibly.
You're listening to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez.
In your communities, in Chicago.
On WCPT 820.
See, this is how I love what I do. We're talking to cast and crew from the film Single Car Crash is available to rent or purchase on all platforms, digital, your internet, cable, and satellite. I was asking them earlier, Paulina, Trevor, and Brittany, about anything that surprised them during the filming, and somebody just remembered something that they...
Well, I'm going to set Trevor up to tell it. It was not necessarily during the filming, But after the filming, on the very last day of filming, when we were at a dive bar together celebrating, and it was Halloween, and we were all in Halloween costumes. If you're familiar with Highwood, it's important to know that everything is decorated. There are life-size plastic skeletons everywhere. And while we are just minding our own business on Wednesday at 11 p.m., getting one more beer.
Yeah, it was one last one.
One last beer.
Yeah, one last beer before we had to drive. And then all of a sudden someone came in, and I saw the corner of my eyes that there was blood on his hands, and I was like, well, it's Halloween, you know.
Oh, no!
And then he's like, I've been stabbed, and I was like, and no one's paying attention to him. I'm like, oh no, he's real. This is real. He's stabbed. So I run over there. Brittany, for some reason, we both are like, this is our time to shine. This is what we were made to do.
My Girl Scout badge is not for naught.
Exactly. I get him down to sit on a stool, and then she pulls a skeleton off of a decoration on the wall, and then puts it, like, creates pressure on
now it's a skeleton. I try to rip the T-shirt off the skeleton, but it's plastic, so you're trying to, like, get it off of its elbows, and it's not as easy as it looks. Apply pressure to the wound. Trevor's holding this man's head in his hands, like, stay with me, buddy, talking to him about his kids. We get the paramedics call. The guy's totally fine. We're laughing about it now. He was completely fine, made a full recovery, but in the moment, it felt very serious.
Filmmakers and lifesavers. Yeah.
Yeah.
So before we go, do you have another project that you're working on, another baby that you're working on?
I do. I'm in post-production on a proof of concept called Out of the House. That's a movie like Rami meets Insecure, but with an Indian female lead. And we shot in a Hindu temple in Grays Lake. So that'll be hitting the festival circuit. And then I am writing a TV pilot called Hush Money. That's a nuanced critique of ourselves and each other in the entertainment industry when it comes to sexual harassment. And then that's a comedy. It's not haha all the time, but it's like funny about that. And then
the bear can be a comedy.
Anything can be a comedy, including Single Car Crashes, which is about grief but also funny. And then I have another feature film that I'm going to be directing called Ectopic. That's a fertility horror. And I'm going to shoot that probably end of this year.
Everyone should be following all the careers of our wonderful guests in the studio. Do you have any social media handles you want people to follow you? Or I don't want to...
Teamorg22.
Teamorg. That's Trevor Morgan. I was so good the last time. Paulina Olchinski.
Yeah.
It was wonderful to have you both in studio and to meet you, and I'm glad that Brittany brought us all together. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you ever want to talk about other projects, and the door is always open.
Thank you. We will, and I'll share the handle on Instagram to follow, to keep in touch with Single Car Crashes is at 521 Films. That's all words spelled out, and films is plural. 521 Films on Instagram is where we post the most relevant news.
Well, thank you all so much, and I look forward to seeing you again. I want to thank our sponsor, Solar. Go to source.solar for your solar needs. Thank you so much, Paul Travari, and Randy Rhodes is up next, followed by Matt McNeil. That was fast. Bye.